Trump intends to enact a national sales tax that would raise prices on middle-class families by $4,000 a year. We will pass a tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
To remind you that 60% of sales on Amazon come from independent sellers, Farmer Bob and his Princeton popcorn will be
Well, just about 3 minutes to 9:30 this morning, Wednesday, the 9th of October, the year 2024, the Senate business will be commencing. Will be commencing, and this is a live stream that is coming to you from the Parliament buildings in Nairobi. A broadcast that is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with KBC. A warm welcome to you. Good morning. My name is Kamchi Menza. The members of the Senate will this morning, once the business of the House kicks off, consider a procedural motion, and this is with regards to the resolution that was reached to hold sittings on Monday, the 14th of October, the year 2024, and alter the hours of meeting on Tuesday, 15th of October, the year 2024. This is, of course, with regards to the consideration of the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Honorable Dr. Recab Mutai, the governor of Kericho County. And this is a procedural motion that will be moved by the Senate Majority Leader, Honorable Aaron Cheriot. This motion comes just a day after the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffa Kingi, communicated to the House or relayed the message from the County Assembly of Kericho on their resolution to have the governor removed from office by way of impeachment. And on the Tuesday afternoon sitting, it was agreed that the hearing of that special motion of that impeachment motion will be done by way of plenary, and these are the days that have been set aside for that particular hearing. That is the 14th of October, which is on Monday next week, and the 15th of October, which is Tuesday next week. Now, this procedural motion is to hold sittings on Monday, which on a regular days, Mondays, the Senate does not sit, and also alter the hours of meeting on Tuesday, which on regular days, the Senate sittings begin at 2:30. So in these 2 days, the Senate will be resolving to have the House sit on these 2 days, beginning from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then 2:30 p.m. until the conclusion of business that will be listed in that particular order. Remember, in the Tuesday afternoon sitting, after the Speaker communicated on this, directed that both parties be notified that they need to submit or present the relevant documents with regards to that. And you understand that on Wednesdays morning, during the morning sitting, that is, it is a time for questions and responses by the cabinet secretaries. These are questions from the various members of the Senate to, of course, various cabinet secretaries. And this morning, 3 cabinet secretaries are expected to appear before the floor of the House to respond to various concerns. Remember, these concerns that are raised by the honorable senators may be related to county, inter-county, national, regional, or even international. So these are issues that cabinet secretaries normally appear before the floor of the Senate to respond to these questions. And this morning, the three cabinet secretaries that the Senate plans to hear from the Prime Cabinet Secretary, who's also the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, the Cabinet Secretary for East African Community, EAC, and ASALs and Regional Development, as well as the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Deborah Mulongo. Those three will be appearing before the Senate this morning. The Prime Cabinet Secretary will be responding to a question by the Nairobi City County Senator Honorable Edwin Sifuna, and this is with regards to the staffing levels by cadre at the Kenya Embassy in Washington, D.C., the two consulates in Los Angeles and New York, and outline the roles of staff serving in each cadre. Also explain how the staffing levels have impacted the operational efficacy of the said diplomatic missions, and clarify whether there are any plans to deploy additional staff, and whether the Cabinet Secretary could also explain the delay in the issuance of national identity cards to Kenyans residing in the United States of America, and state what the ministry is doing to resolve the issue. That is the sole a question from a member as listed in the order of business for today, because you understand that there are usually supplementary questions from the other members, but they have to be linked to this particular subject matter. The Cabinet Secretary for East African Community, the ASALs and Regional Development will also be responding to one question, or rather questions from one member as listed in this order paper, aside from the supplementary questions that will be coming along with regards to the details of these questions and the responses that will be given. Is the questions from the Senator for West Pokot County, Honorable Julius Murgor, and this is with regards to details of the socio-economic activities carried out by the Kerio Valley Development Authority, if you like, KVDA, in West Pokot County. Also residents of West Pokot who have been employed by the KVDA, also the land that was acquired by the government for the construction of Takwel Dam, as well as when the when the irrigation of the residents' farm will commence as promised by the government during the construction of the dam, and this is the Takwel Dam. At the entrance, that is the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffa King, already approaching the chair. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good morning.
Na tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, tutakusifu tutazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri hii yetu. Tukuomba tuwajalie tuyatende na kufikia mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu.
We built a 7-figure business as a 2-person agency, and I wish we had HoneyBook when we started 10 years ago.
Businesses need to be organized, professional, and maintain a consistent client experience. That's the challenge that we're all facing and need a solution for.
But with HoneyBook, you can focus on doing what you love without all the busy work.
Sending and creating beautiful and professional client proposals and contracts, and getting them signed quickly and efficiently.
You can easily schedule invoices and reminders, accept payments. Oh, and fun fact, 90% of invoices sent from HoneyBook are paid on time or early. And it's
Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
Well, as the quorum bell is on, members will be making their way into the chambers. And once that quorum is achieved, then we will be going right into the business that is set out to be transacted in this sitting, or rather in this morning's sitting. 3 cabinet secretaries, as I had indicated earlier, are sought out to appear before the Senate chambers this morning, of course, to respond to various questions that were raised by the honorable members. And these questions, they were forwarded to the cabinet secretaries, and the cabinet secretaries have responses to these questions, which they will be presenting before the senators to respond to the queries or concerns that they had raised. The cabinet secretary, that is the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, also the Cabinet Secretary for East African Community, the ASALs and the Regional Development, and also the Cabinet Secretary for Health are set out to appear before the Senate this morning. The Cabinet Secretary for Health will be responding to 6 questions as laid out on the order paper for this morning from 5, other from 4 senators. The nominated senator, Honorable Peris Tobiko, has laid out 3 questions. The first question will be with regards to the Linda Mama initiative, which sought to achieve universal access to maternal and child health services. Also with regards to the EduAfia insurance scheme, which she says leaves the poor and vulnerable students in public secondary schools without medical cover. Also with regards to the National Health Insurance Fund, whether the members are able to access services in all public and private medical facilities, and if not, whether the Cabinet Secretary could explain the reasons for the same. The member, Honorable Peris Tobiko, also will be seeking the Cabinet Secretary for Health to respond to issues concerning any initiatives to enhance the capacity of the Kenya healthcare system to provide specialized treatment for endometriosis. Also, any measures that have been taken to raise awareness on the condition. Well, allow me to hand you over back to
questions and statements.
Now, we have the Prime Cabinet Secretary present today for purposes of responding to question number 99 by the Nairobi City County Senator, Senator Edwin Sifuna. And therefore, I'm not seeing Senator Edwin Sifuna. Clerk, can you proceed to usher in the Prime Cabinet Secretary?
Brainstorming is my superpower, not organization. So Canva Whiteboards gets all my...
So the 2 CSS health and whatever. Health. Now we had anticipated, or we expected today to have 3 CSs. That is the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the ESC CS, and the CS in charge of health matters. However, we have since received 2 letters, one from the CS in charge of ESC, indicating that she is not in a position to attend, this session today for purposes of responding to the questions directed to her ministry and also the CS in charge of health. She's also indicated that she's not in a position to attend today's session for purposes of responding to the questions directed to her ministry. And therefore, we only have the Prime Cabinet Secretary present today for purposes of responding to the question directed to his ministry by the Nairobi City County Senator, Senator Edwin Sifuna. And therefore, for this session, we are going to proceed with the Prime Cabinet Secretary only, because the two others are not present today. What is it? So, Prime Cabinet Secretary, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to the Senate, a place that we are extremely familiar with. Welcome this morning. We are going to have a very heavy day, honorable senators. And I may limit even the number of supplementary questions that may be directed to the Cabinet Secretary so that we handle the other heavy agenda that will be laid before us. We expect a supplementary order paper as these proceedings will be ongoing so that we prosecute other urgent matters. With that, I will allow the Senator for Nairobi City County, Senator Edwin Sifuna, to proceed and ask his question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As you're aware, over the period of 16th to 31st of August of this year, I had opportunity to visit the US with your kind support, Honorable Speaker. And during that period, I had opportunity to engage with Kenyans living in the US, in the cities of Chicago, Seattle, Washington, D.C., and Houston. And it is the genesis of these questions that I've posed to the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs out of my interaction with the Kenyans and including our diplomats at the Kenyan Embassy in Washington, D.C. Honorable Speaker, unfortunately, as I speak, I have not received the hard copy responses, but I hope the Secretariat is making arrangements. So I'm not aware whether the CS has actually put in written responses. But these are the questions, Honorable Speaker, and I will read the three of them. I'm sure that the CS can answer all of them at once. The first question to the CS is, could the Cabinet Secretary indicate the staffing levels by cadre at the Kenya Embassy in Washington, D.C., and the two Kenya consulates in Los Angeles and New York, and outline the roles of staff serving in each cadre? Secondly, Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary explain how the staffing levels have impacted the operational efficiency of the said diplomatic missions, and clarify whether there are any plans to deploy additional staff? Lastly, Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary also explain the delay in the issuance of national identity cards to Kenyans residing in the US and state what the ministry is doing to resolve the issue? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I would like to state that the hard copy has been released. Maybe it's just a delay to get to you, but it had been signed. On the first aspect of his question, to indicate the staffing levels by cadre at the Kenyan Embassy in Washington, D.C., the two consulates in Los Angeles and New York, and then outline the staff, the role of the staff. I wish to say that in the hard copy, in the response I've given, I've tabled the details of the home-based staff indicating the authorized, the impost, and the variants. I've done the same also for the other agencies. That is the Defense Attaché, the Education Attaché, Foreign Relations Officer, Trade Attaché, and Immigration. So in total, there's an indication, we indicate that the authorized is 17, but we have a deficit, and the authorized, the impost is 14. So there's a variance of 3. I've also indicated in the permanent UN mission, I've also indicated that there is an immigration officer attached there to handle the consulate services. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have also attached the details of the Los Angeles, again on the same principle, the authorized, the impost, and where there's any variance. Clearly, on the LA, both the authorized and impost tally, that is a total of 7 as it stands now. I have also tabulated the responsibilities of all these officers. Mr. Speaker, it's a long list. So perhaps it may be necessary for the Honorable Senator to perhaps seek any clarification on 1 or 2 issues after he looks at that. The second aspect is about the efficiency. Explain how the staffing levels have impacted the operational efficiency of the said diplomatic missions, and clarify whether there are any plans to deploy additional staff. Mr. Speaker, definitely staffing levels have a direct influence on operational efficiency by affecting workload distribution, response times, and the overall capacity to manage diplomatic tasks. Therefore, low staffing levels may occasion service deliveries such as delays in processing visas when we are doing the full angle of visas, but we still do it on a limited basis because, as you know, we are also a visa-free country now, but there are still some areas that require visa processing. We have aspects of managing communication and executing policy initiatives. So definitely, it is absolutely essential that proper staffing levels are in situ to avoid delays. The third aspect that I will touch to is the issue of the delay in the issuance of national identity cards to Kenyans residing in the United States of America, and what the ministry is doing to resolve this issue. Mr. Speaker, I would like to point out that the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs serves as a facilitator, coordinating the issuance of ID cards through the immigration attachés in missions abroad. In this case, identity cards are processed at our embassy in Washington, D.C., which is also in charge of the consulate in New York that processes identity cards for Kenyans in the eastern side of the US, and the consulate in LA that serves Kenyans on the western side. Mr. Speaker, some of the challenges we have that have occasioned delays include the following: issuance of registration on e-citizen, where the system sometimes rejects foreign numbers, where the one-time password has to be sent to the particular phone number used by for the registration. We are now sensitizing the diaspora to use the email option. B, we have the processing of ID cards is entirely manual, and verification of all applications has to be done by the National Registration Bureau. This causes a bit of delay, especially at missions that are not well staffed. In addition, in the event of queries, the request has to be channeled back to the mission to seek clarity from the applicant. I also want to bring to the attention of the Senate that the court case brought against the Maisha number did cause a general delay in identity card processing for both local and international applications. However, since the signing of that court order on 12th August 2024, processing and issuance of ID cards has now resumed normally. There's also an interesting scenario where some of the applicants have not collected their national identity cards and passports, which have been finalized at our missions. As of now, for instance, the immigration in New York has in its storage 8 ID cards, which the return mailing address given by the applicants were wrong and had been mailed back to the mission. Emails or calls to the applicants could not go through. Therefore, we still hold those IDs. I also would like to point out that through the Rapid Results Initiative by the State Department for Diaspora Affairs, where they, in collaboration with the State Department for Immigration and e-citizens, periodically decentralize the ID processing to other cities away from the embassy or consulates are located. This is undertaken through the Mobile Consular Services outreach exercise, which has seen 2,459 identity cards processed in outstations in Seattle, Atlanta, Minnesota, Dallas, Boston, and Houston. Another phase of this mobile consular services is being planned for the third quarter of the financial year 2024-25. On the issue of the e-citizens and the challenges of the OTP versus foreign cellular numbers, the Principal Secretary for Diaspora Affairs is engaging some of our local telcos on an option of an eSIM card, which the diaspora can use while away for both e-citizen. In addition, the State Department for Diaspora is preparing to deploy officers to support the service provision to the Kenyan diaspora in the 3 missions in the US. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I can say that the requirement is tabulated, so it may require further examination. And I just want to assure the House that either now or later, I or my PS, Dr. Singoi, would be happy to offer any written clarification beyond this.
Come for the flight, stay for the lounge. Elevate your airport lounge experience with Chase Sapphire Reserve.
Yes, Senator Eden Sifuna, you may ask 2 supplementary questions.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, before I even go to the supplementary questions, I'm wholly disappointed by the quality of the response. I thought that the full title of the CS of Foreign Affairs also puts him in charge of coordination of other ministries. Surely, if there are issues that are in ministries other than the Foreign Affairs, I know we should direct it to the ministry itself, but being the person in charge of coordination of all the other ministries, I expected a more solid response, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, for instance, the response indicates that there is an ambassador and 1 in-post. That essentially means there's an ambassador deployed in Washington, D.C. I would want to know when the ambassador reported, because when I was there, the embassy was manned by a charge d'affaires. There was no ambassador. I don't know when he reported. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, you will see the tabulation here. There is only 1 trade attaché for a country that is as important as the US. And I would have expected a discussion on the adequacy. When I was there, I was given an example, Honorable Speaker. A country like Vietnam has 4 agricultural attachés, indicating the seriousness with which they take their job. I would have expected a discussion about the adequacy of the staff that have been deployed. If you are telling us, Honorable Speaker, that you have 1 staff in the consulate in New York, what happens when that person falls sick? That is why there are all sorts of problems in these consulates, because you cannot have 1 person manning a station. It just doesn't make any sense. So that is the sort of discussion that I had expected. And I have to express my disappointment in the answer so that the Cabinet Secretary understands what I wanted to get from him. But in terms of follow-up questions, Honorable Speaker, first of all, the women in the US, Honorable CS, asked me to ask you specifically why it is that since 1963, with the first Kenyan ambassador, Burudi Nabwera, up to today, you have never seconded a woman as the ambassador of Kenya to the US. That is a question that the ladies asked me to put to the CS, and I would be remiss if I did not put to it. Maybe there is a thinking within government as to the capacity of women to be deployed in serious postings, such as Washington, D.C. Honorable Speaker, secondly, the problem with the delays in the processing of IDs, as the CS himself has alluded to, is that it's a manual process. People have to travel from all across the US, a country that is far more vast than, say, the EU. And if the CS would compare the deployment of diplomatic staff in the entire European Union, which is smaller in size than the American continent, Honorable Speaker, these people have to travel from all these far distances, 5-hour flights, 6-hour flights. Then you come to the embassy and you have to do this manual process as if you are at a DC's office in Kerugoya, Honorable Speaker. And then they are put in a diplomatic bag, they are sent here. There is no special office for processing of diaspora applications for IDs. They are just lumped together with other applications from, say, Kilifi, Bungoma, and Nairobi. And yet there is an office that was created, I think it is a department, on diaspora affairs. Can the CS shed light on the responsibilities of this office and what these people do in the diaspora office, if not just concentrate on these applications, and what they are doing to automate the process of processing of identification cards? Because, Honorable Speaker, the feedback was that because we have automated the application process and the processing of passports are faster than IDs that are still manual. So what is the plan, Honorable CS, for you to address these challenges to ensure that people get these documents, critical documents, in good time? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable.
Unlock your mind, free your soul, move your body, watch me go, move your body.
Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may proceed to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are quite a number of issues that are valid in the concerns that the Senator does raise. The first thing that I need to point out is that there's no discrimination against women in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And in fact, as we speak today, I can give you an example that in the UK, the High Commissioner is a lady. I would also want to point out that the ambassador for Kenya in Washington reported 2 weeks ago. So he's in station. And this comes, there's a cycle. Ambassadors and officers in missions have a cycle, a tour of duty of about 4 years. And in the process, the issue of their term expiring, it is staggered, it's not all at the same time. So this would have been a situation where you are visiting when the outgoing was also just preparing to come back or had just left. And that is Ambassador Amayo. So sometimes you are caught up in these cycles between transition. And I would say that that is the reason why maybe you did not meet the ambassador, but there's an ambassador as we speak today. I have indicated that the consular services through the diaspora affairs did yield about 2,500 IDs in different towns, and therefore we'll continue in the efforts to make sure that we reach out. Automation and technology are things we are pursuing within the context of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in linkage, in liaison even with the immigration, so that we can improve the services. So there are these delays that we hope to navigate through going forward. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it would be a big omission if I did not inform the Senate that one of the challenges that we have faced and we continue to face is actually the resource allocation. And I'll give a very clear example that, for instance, when we lost the finance bill, we have seriously had to do a serious haircut in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just like other ministries. But when you look at it in the context of the resources that would have been available to make sure that we are seamless in our operations, as of now, let me admit that we are constrained financially, and it is a challenge that is facing the entire country. So we hope that within the context of the next financial year, as we progress, we can improve on the funding of our missions.
Senator Mungatana.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Namkaribisha waziri wetu mkuu kwa bunge letu la Senate. Na swali langu Bwana Spika linahusika pale kuhusu ni wangapi ambao wanafanya kazi katika ubalozi wa Amerika. Bwana Spika, kitambo kidogo nilifanya kazi katika wizara ya nchi za kigeni, na kulikuwa shida pale kwa sababu watu wengi huwa wanataka kutoka Kenya waende kufanya kazi nchi za nje. Sasa swali ambalo nilikuwa nataka kufuatilia, ubalozi wa Amerika umeahidi kwamba pesa zikipatikana, waziri utatuongezea wafanyikazi pale. Sisi tunataka kujua katika ile kuzigawa zile nafasi, ni wangapi wanatoka Tana River, ni wangapi wanatoka sehemu ya kaunti hii, kaunti hii, kaunti ile. Kwa sababu gani? Tunataka usawa. Hatutaki wizara iwe na shida ya kwamba pande moja, pande mbili, pande tatu ndio ziko katika wizara. Sasa mimi nauliza, katika wizara na ubalozi wa Amerika ni watu wangapi wanatoka Tana River, kaunti yetu? Na kama hawako hapo, nauliza katika ile breakdown ya wale ambao wanafanya kazi pale, kuna usawa? Na kama hakuna, waziri una mipango gani ya kuhakikisha kwamba katika ubalozi wa Amerika na balozi zingine kuna usawa kwa wale watu ambao wanaenda kufanya kazi za nje? Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Catherine Muma. Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may note down the questions and then you can respond to them at a group.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and welcome to the Senate, the Prime Cabinet Secretary. My question to you, Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary, is whether we have a national policy guiding the ratio of appointment of ambassadors between politically appointed ambassadors and career diplomatic ambassadors. Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary, my question is premised on the fact that international diplomatic relations is a very serious issue, and when we see appointments, sometimes we see more politically appointed ambassadors than career diplomats. So we would want to know whether we have a policy that guides on the ratio. Thank you.
With Canva, it's so easy. It allows me to make my presentation.
Senator Okenyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary the following question. whether citizens in diaspora with the dual citizenship will also be required to register for Maisha card. Thank you.
Senator Kavindu Agnes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to first of all appreciate the CS for coming today. We've been waiting for him for a long, long time. Mr. Speaker, mine is a bit diverted, but he's aware of it, and I'm sure he can answer it. It's about how far he has gone with the issue of the conversation of the Kenyan victims, as in getting the amendment from the US Congress. Because when we were in America, we discussed about this in your presence, and you are aware of it. And I don't know how far you've gone with this issue. And I also want to know if you are aware that the victims who are at the embassy, serving at the Embassy of America here in Kenya, are getting the green cards to go to the US. And most of them are in their 80s. What are you doing about negotiating for them that their relatives who are younger can get the green cards and go and serve there? Because majority of them who are working there are now of age, and they cannot go and work unless they just go and stay there. And this is ongoing right now with the Embassy of America. Thank you.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Prime CS, who is also my senior constituent from Vihiga County. Speaker, I would like to find out from the Prime CS. I can see from the response, there is a disparity in numbers between New York and Los Angeles. Ordinarily, we would expect that New York, being the leading economic hub of the US, will have more focus around it. We can see in New York, we have 1 staff, and Los Angeles, we have 7. So what informs this disparity? Number 2, I am shocked with the low staffing levels in the embassies in the US, which means probably in other countries is even worse, Mr. Speaker. And we know that the trend globally is focused around economic diplomacy. So can the Prime CS tell us what plans he has to upscale economic diplomacy through these various embassies and consulates? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Veronica.
Honorable Speaker, and welcome once again, Prime Cabinet Secretary. Commendably, the IEBC rolled out the voting rights for the diaspora, and the diaspora remittances are some of the highest exchange earners for our country, so hence the need for them to continue exercising their right to the presidential vote, to determine the presidential vote. Honorable Cabinet Secretary, have you considered rolling out consulates in states where Kenyans are we have a heavy population of Kenyans, like Texas, Atlanta, besides Los Angeles and New York and Washington, where we have an embassy, seeing that these are the stations where the voting takes place in the United States? And have you also considered the cost of diaspora accessing this station is still very high? They would have to spend close to $1,000 to access a voting station when it's time for them to vote. What are you doing to mitigate that effect and reduction of cost and access to the stations where they need to vote every cycle of 5 years?
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to welcome CS. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask a question on office accommodation in various missions and commissions. I mean missions and embassies. Mr. Speaker,
I sit in Committee of National Security and Foreign Relations of this House. CS, we have tried to get in touch so that we can discuss matters affecting our particular committee, but we are unable to get you, and I don't want to prosecute that here. But I remember 2015, there was a motion passed on the floor of this House regarding office accommodation by then Senator Fonyeri, Senator Mutahi Kagwe. Mr. Speaker, our last visit to UAE, the embassies were actually complaining about the value of Kenya shilling that has gone down, which has doubled actually the rent that they are paying within those missions and embassies. I remember in that particular motion, the senator was requesting that the money you are paying for those rents should be actually used in form of a loan to pay for those properties the government is actually occupying. Mr. Speaker, I've been to Switzerland, Geneva. The kind of office that you have there, it's really very beautiful, and we really get very encouraged when we visit those offices. If you look at New York, Mr. Speaker, we are renting a property as Kenyan government when Uganda has a very huge building in New York City. Really, it's so embarrassing. And I want to know what the ministry is doing as far as this office accommodation is concerned. I thank you.
When I first joined Honeybook, I was roughly making $1,500 a month. Fast forward to today.
Prime CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are several critical issues that have been raised, so I'll respond to them, not in any specific order, but just as I was taking the notes. Now, the first issue is to do with the tribal or ethnic balance that was raised. I want to state very clearly that it is our intention, and we are very deliberate, that we need our missions always to reflect the face of Kenya, the diversity of Kenya. And therefore, we will work to achieve this in all our missions. I may not have everything in terms of the community that one comes from, but I took note of what Mungatana was saying, and it's a very pertinent point, that in the deployment of officers, it is important that all parts of Kenya are represented. And I would want to believe that I'll be better prepared to respond to this particular question, even as a separate item. The second point I'd like to point out on this particular issue is that the question that arises about the ratio of the career diplomats and the incoming or other appointees that are infused from other sectors, whether private sector or the political realm, that come into the diplomatic space. And that again is a valid question. And Mr. Speaker, I want to perhaps announce to the House today that we are in the process of formulating a sessional paper which will be discussed by Parliament. And one of the critical issues that we'll be putting across in this sessional paper is for us to have a conversation as a country through our leadership as legislators, so that we can establish a reasonable ratio, so that we can have career progression for the diplomats who are in office or working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But at the same time, we can also work closely to bring in some infusion from outside, because it's always good to have this injection of ideas and approaches from the outside world. We should not necessarily be incestuous permanently in this context. We should be able to infuse with other people. So this is going to be a very critical issue in that conversation. And I will be appealing to members to give it very good thought when the sessional paper is availed for this conversation. The other point I want to quickly point out was the issue of the how many consulates can we open? We would have liked to have more, but we are constrained financially, and that is why we are still operating with the LA as the consulate in the United States. If resources permit in future, we can indeed increase the number of consulates. On the issue of the voting, I think it's important that this is a conversation that we shall have to have jointly with the IEBC, because again, when it comes to the issues of voter registration and access, that is a domain that falls within the IEBC. And we at Foreign Affairs would be more of a facilitator, but we cannot try to use up the role of the IEBC in terms of voter registration, and which should be the centers, but we can have a conversation at the appropriate time. I wish to make a correction. Indeed, I may have indicated the LA consulate and the New York consulate. Maybe I didn't communicate well. This was raised by Honorable Osotsi. I wish to state that indeed in New York, we have a permanent mission. And in that permanent mission, which is the busiest station, as you say, we have an authorized establishment of 18, and they're in place, save for 4, as we speak now in New York. So perhaps that's an addition of supplemented information I will make available to show that the permanent mission is well staffed and there are people in station. The issue of our foreign service assets, that is the properties that we own and the ones that we may not own. That is a very, very important issue, because rental payments in the foreign countries is a very big burden. It consumes quite a lot of money in some of the stations. But I'm pleased to announce to the Kenyans that, through the Senate, to the Kenyans that as we speak now, Kenya bought a whole floor just next to the United Nations headquarters. And that is where the permanent mission is now domiciled. That's where the chancery is. So we have taken care of that particular item. We cannot, we missed our chances then. When Uganda bought, that was way back during the time of Idi Amin Dada. That's when he bought the asset for Uganda. And we cannot say that we can afford to have the resources to buy a new building or a building today in New York, but we have managed to secure a whole floor, which is now occupied by the mission. I also want to state that in terms of our global assets, which we are talking about, in New York, we have some properties as well, and in other stations, and we are developing a strategy on how to realize the value of our global assets, which includes development of the various properties, and to see how we can seek different financing mechanisms, either through PPP or joint programs with even some of our Kenyan financial institutions to be able to develop the assets that we have in different countries. And this again is a detail we'll share in the sessional paper that we shall be presenting to you. Mr. Speaker, I cannot speak for the American immigration policy. They have their own policy, and therefore we can only raise concerns on some of the issues and perhaps seek some negotiations, but we cannot impose our will on the American immigration policy. I have personally had my own experiences where sometimes what the ambassador is doing, they can become very clear and tell you that the State Department for Immigration is independent and handles its issues separately. So it takes much more. But I can say that as we negotiate the strategic trade and investment partnership agreement, that is the STIP, with the United States, and the negotiations are quite advanced. We hope that some of these issues can be tackled within the framework of that conversation. There is the issue of the compensation of the victims of the blast. We are pursuing that matter following the resolution of the House on that, so that we can engage formally with the Parliament or the Congress in the US. This is now underway following the resolution that was passed by our members of the legislature. And at an appropriate time, we will be able to report progress systematically, because it's a process that has to engage with their counterparts on the other side. There is one thing that I want to state, that indeed economic diplomacy.
Can I offer you a popped Quaker rice cake?
Sure.
They go great with cream cheese. Avocado.
Is very critical to us. The United States is perhaps now our largest market when it comes to the export of apparel. We are close to, I think we are the largest exporter to them, and the market continues to grow. So we take our relationship with the United States very, very seriously in this context as a key and fundamental trading partner. And that is why you will find that during the recent state visit by the president, certain key issues were undertaken of enhancing the trade and partnership between us and the United States. As I've said, we are also negotiating the strategic trade and investment partnership agreement, and the other programs that the Kenya government is working very, very closely with the United States, which have a major bearing on the economies of both countries, but more so on the Kenyan economy. Mr. Speaker, there's one issue that I may need to get a little more clarification, but that was the issue of the dual citizenship and the Maisha card. If the Speaker allows, we can do a little more research on this specific item and communicate to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Senator Muma.
My question on policy, the policy on the ratio between diplomats, politically appointed diplomats and career diplomats.
I did respond to it. I said that we may not have a firm figure, but for instance, I could give you what I think. For instance, a proportion of about 70% for the career diplomats and 30% for the infusion would be a fairly decent arrangement. But as I said, we are giving a more thought out process that will appear in the sessional paper, which we shall bring to Parliament for discussion. Thank you.
Senator, yes, Senator Mudama.
Yes.
Your question has not been responded to adequately.
It has been responded, but Mr. Speaker, I just want to ask the CS if he can listen to me. Mr. CS, if you can listen. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to request him.
Senator Kabindu, you know, understanding order.
He was talking and you are not seeing, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kabindu, just have your seat. Please take your seat. Please.
Please, what I
Just take your seat. You see, understanding orders, and more particularly standing order 51(7)C, 51(C)(7)C states that the senator who has the primary question has a chance to ask 2 supplementary questions. Any other senator can only ask 1 supplementary question, which we do not have the provisions of standing order. All right, proceed. If you need clarification, that's quite okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to tell Mr. CS that, Honorable CS, that these people have been waiting for their compensation for the last 26 good years. Many of them are dying. So as much as we are in good relationship with the Americans and we don't want to offend them, but let's follow up for the compensation of our people, please. They are dying in poverty. They are perishing in poverty. And even as a country, as Kenyans, we've not been able to assist them with anything, even medical assistance. Thank you.
Senator Jeriot.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Prime CS for finding time to respond to these questions. And it's not just in this house. I must appreciate him for his diligence, even outside this house, how he responds to issues raised by Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, my question is to piggyback on what Senator Sifuna had initially asked, availability of government services actually to our citizens in the diaspora. I know, Mr. Speaker, that through eCitizen, Kenyans are now able to access thousands of government services.
Listen up. This election's about your wallet. Candidate A is a billionaire looking out for billionaires. Candidate B knows the struggle. Tax credits for working and middle-class families.
Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
Excuse me, can you tell me where the train station is located?
Online, and they're able to pay for the same and quickly receive solutions to their problems. The challenge with our diaspora citizens is that these services are either not available or a help desk to help them maybe respond to the issues, such as what Senator Sifuna was speaking about, ID applications, renewal of passports, and the same. Yet, these are services that I want to believe if his ministry, alongside the other state department that is in charge of citizen services, like eCitizen, Mr. Speaker, were to set up a help desk across our consulars, Mr. Speaker, then citizens will be saved from the trouble of having to travel thousands of kilometers sometimes, wasting money and time to access certain critical government services. So the question in brief, Mr. Speaker, is when are they going to make eCitizen services easily accessible and the issues that citizens have easily resolvable, Mr. Speaker, so that they don't struggle? I thank you.
Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the CS, the Prime CS, for being in the House today to answer these questions. I also wanted to piggyback on Senator Sifuna's questions on the efficiency of staffing, and particularly narrow it down to legal services. Looking at the United States, Mr. Speaker, having studied there and lived there for over 8 years, and having ties to the United States, Mr. Speaker, with the diaspora, the Kenyan diaspora, Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of challenges for our people there with regards to legal representations. Mr. Speaker, as you know, in the United States as well as other countries where our people are found, there are a number of people who get arrested, whether genuinely or for reasons otherwise. And after those arrests, some of them end up being incarcerated to the extent that their families cannot be able to access them. They don't have legal services. Mr. Speaker, a case in example is a former prominent presidential candidate, Mohamed Abdu Badida, who was incarcerated, and for months, almost 2 years, even our government did not know that he was under bars. He was behind bars, Mr. Speaker. And I just wonder whether there is proper legal services across the 52 states, because I know that in DC is where we have got 1 or 2 legal representations, but what is the ministry doing to make sure that our people in the United States have got representation across the United States? And is this also extended as services to other countries where we are seeing problems like war in Lebanon, where legal representation is a problem, as well as evacuation of our people in Lebanon? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Miraj.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the CS is concerning our sisters who are on the run in the Saudi Arabia, whom, after following up with your ministry, I was updated that the Department for Diaspora had conducted some DNA tests because the sisters of ours had kids in the foreign country. And there's been a problem of them being deported with their kids back to Kenya. So my question is, for how long are our sisters to wait for this? Because they are not able to access the rescue centers in Saudi. So they are living on the run with small kids who are exposed to so many cruelty to the women who are left to take care of them. So my question is, Mr. CS, for how long do our sisters have to survive on the run while the matter is already in the attention of the ministry? And they are supposed to have been paying some legal fees for them to have the ownership of their kids. So my question is, for how long will our sisters be exposed in the Saudi Arabia before the government can take the necessary actions to bring them back with their kids to their nation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Brainstorming is my superpower, not organization. So Canva Whiteboards gets all.
Senator
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I would like to say that I'm happy to see the Cabinet Secretary, who is somebody I've worked with before and somebody I know very well. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that I am giving my appreciation of the fact that when about 2 weeks ago, we had an incident in Mali, and I called somebody in your ministry and told them that there are Kenyans who are in trouble, and I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, that the government was able to engage that team overnight, and the following morning, in fact, the Kenyans who are in trouble responded back and said, we are safe and thank you for intervening, and they thanked the officer in the ministry. I forget her name, and she did an excellent job. Mr. Speaker, the question I'm actually asking the CS is that when you look at what is happening in Lebanon, I've not seen the Kenyan government come up either explaining to the public what you intend to do with Kenyans who have been working there. There are cases of Kenyans who are calling us back. Do you have any plans to airlift those Kenyans in case the war continues? And is there a possibility that you can actually set up a fund from now on? Because most of the money that members of the Kenyan community are giving us in form of contributions or diaspora transfers is a lot of money. So I would like the minister to tell us whether there's a possibility they can set up a fund, and if possible, if it works well, so that anytime we have an emergency and anytime there are cases where Kenyans who are working outside Kenya and they're in trouble, whether there's a possibility that we can always airlift our people back and make sure that every Kenyans are safe, because the world is becoming a bit volatile. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator from Nandi, Senator Chiranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is on the issue of, you see, Mr. Speaker, the money that came to this country through foreign exchange was 15,966 million in February 2024, according to the Central Bank of the Republic of Kenya. My question, Mr. Speaker, because this is the highest foreign exchange earner to the Republic, is about labor attaches. Mr. Speaker, you are aware the CS of labor was in this house a few months ago. My concern is, what is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and through the Prime Cabinet Secretary on the issue of labor attaches to ensure our young men and women, because the President has just signed what we call labor, there was the labor migration bill, and the President has signed for more people or young people to be taken. And Mr. Speaker, even on the issue of legal services, Mr. Speaker, you are aware we only have one legal advisor in New York. I remember there was a frustrated person from Kapsabet a few months ago, and I shared with the PS of Foreign Affairs. My concern, Mr. Speaker, what is the role of the Department of Diaspora Affairs in terms of handling such matters? Because I remember when I shared with the PS of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Speaker, the intervention took long. But my concern, it should be the Office of the Diaspora of Foreign Affairs through the PS, who is my very good neighbor. And he normally comes to Nandi occasionally, and he has even relatives. What can he do, Mr. Speaker, on these two matters that I've raised? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
A lot of people don't know this, but this new AI app that Apple has just released can actually be used to create a new stream of income for yourself just using.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by appreciating the Prime Cabinet Secretary. These proceedings, Mr. Speaker, are live. And while seated here, I've just received a question from a Kenyan who live in the United States and another one who live in the UK. And their concern is one. The concern has got to do with a fiduciary responsibility of our embassies across the country. In the UK, the query is very simple. And Mr. Speaker, you'll allow me to refer to my message which has just been sent to me. And this relates to the address number 45 Portland Place, London, United Kingdom. And then the sort code is W1A 4GA. And the concern here is a very basic concern. It has to do with filing of annual returns for government of Kenya. These are returns which are required for every embassy across. The United Kingdom requires this. So my question to the Prime Cabinet Secretary is that, are you aware that filing of annual returns by the government of Kenya has not been consistent, specifically for the High Commission office in the United Kingdom? And if so, what can be done to be able to ensure that we have a check system that will guarantee that we are compliant in those countries? Number two also has to do with our embassies abroad. Do we have any embassies that we own? And I ask this because of the issue of Uganda. Uganda, across the world, Idi Amin did something very, very honorable. He bought buildings for in every country. In New York, it's actually a walking distance to the United Nations headquarters. So I just wanted to confirm whether we have some that we own, and also whether we are compliant in filing our returns, and if we are renting, if we are compliant in paying our rent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Manzadan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while I ask a question in relation to Senator Sifuna's matter, I want to give the Cabinet Secretary good news from his office that recently a Catholic sister from my village who is working in Argentina sought help for good conduct so that she could be processed. And I just advised her on phone to get in touch with the ministry online. And Mr. Speaker, I want to surprise the Cabinet Secretary. Within 2 days, she had, everything had been processed and she was able to be employed in Argentina. And that shows that somebody somewhere, and this was the legal department, is doing something good in your ministry. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, is there a policy in the event a Kenyan dies abroad? A lot of times, and especially those countries which do not keep bodies for long, especially countries which do cremation, and especially Islamic countries where funeral is conducted in a day. When a Kenyan passes away abroad, it becomes such a challenge, Mr. Speaker, so that by the time you get the body home, it has almost become the responsibility of member of parliament or senator. Is there a policy and so that there is a desk where Kenyans can report and because of our culture, our own people who are deceased could be taken care of with urgency and the families could be settled during bereavement. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Prime CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must say that as we talk, there are what you might call emerging issues as well in this conversation. But let me start by saying that I think, and I believe what Honorable Senator Cheriot had in mind was to develop a Huduma Center approach to providing services for Kenyans in the diaspora in different capitals. And I think there's merit in this. And I can state that indeed, as we work with other departments, it's something that we are trying to enhance, especially around our consular services, so that there's a one-stop center for the services that Kenyans require. I wish to respond to some of the other issues in the following manner. The question of legal services.
In San Francisco, Kamala let violent criminals like Devondre Broussard go free, and then he murdered 2 men. Kamala always puts criminals first. Don't make America her next victim. Make America Great Again, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about stocks, crypto, and real estate because
it is important. But I want to also just mention to the Kenyans that we are talking of almost 3.5 million Kenyans out there in different parts of the globe. Of course, the United States has the highest population, but in all the countries we are talking of almost 3 million plus Kenyans who are in the diaspora. And the best we can do is that as much as we can have legal advisory services, sometimes within the embassies, depending on the resources available, we would strongly advocate that going forward, perhaps we can improve on this in terms of whether we have sufficient resources to back this particular service. But you will appreciate also that sometimes we have cases where Kenyans are in distress and some can signal the embassy and say they are in distress. There are others who do not speak at all uh, when they are in distress. So you sometimes stumble on information, but maybe it was not volunteered by the person in question. And this is the example of the Dida case. We were reading about it. When he left, when he went, obviously it was his personal decision. But the communication as to his whereabouts or what he was doing, he was silent on this. So it becomes very difficult to be able to keep track on some of these. But our missions have intervened in various circumstances to try and guide Kenyans in distress and help them to access legal services in different areas. But please remember, it is a very expensive undertaking, and we would be misleading the House if we said that we can take up this role directly. It can be maybe under very special circumstances that an intervention is done. On the issue of Kenyans who may have died abroad, in the last, I think in the course of this year, Kenya, the Kenyan Foreign Ministry has assisted about 18 cases of Kenyans who may have died under different circumstances. And our embassies, our missions have been of assistance in trying to repatriate the remains to the country. And again, as I say, this is when the distress and the circumstances are on a case-by-case basis that you analyze and see what the circumstances are. We have the bilateral labor agreements, which we are working on. We have negotiated some, like with Germany, with Austria. These are now concluded. There are others that are in the pipeline. For instance, the Saudi government, we are working on how to improve our engagement when it comes to the labor movement. Recently, for instance, the Qatar Minister for Labor was here, and this was a conversation on how we can advance the conversation between Kenya and Qatar. So we'll continue streamlining the bilateral labor agreements so that any issue of immigration or migrant workers is in conformity with international law. It also conforms to matters of human rights. And through these bilateral agreements, we want to try and secure the dignity of Kenyans in the various places that they prefer to work in. On the issue of Lebanon, I just want to state that one, we have about 26,000 Kenyans in Lebanon, and obviously evacuating 26,000 is a very massive undertaking. But as a measure, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through our embassy in Kuwait, was sending out messages so that those who are in distress can register. Even before the war escalated, this was ongoing. And I think we had received almost about 1,500 or so who had registered with the embassy, indicating that they may need support for evacuation. The others were quiet. And believe you me, Kenyans, senators, we also had a situation where the Kenyans there, out of their own volition, say they don't want to move. They want to hold out until the situation cools down. So we have that dilemma as well of Kenyans who hope for the best and do not want to move. And you cannot force them because we have to handle this in a humanitarian way. But the government of Kenya has set aside 100 million, and there's a committee in the Foreign Affairs working with the security and other agencies to see how this 100 million can be utilized to assist in the evacuation of Kenyans who are in Lebanon at this point in time. I may need to seek further clarification from the Honorable Senator Olekena because the issue of the returns, maybe I need guidance a little more on what are the specifics of these returns, because we are also under the diplomatic arrangements. So we may need to seek clarification, and then we can tackle that particular issue. You came in and you did touch on the investments that Uganda made at that time. I think they were very lucky and they were wise in a way. But I had responded to it partially by saying that right now in New York, for instance, Kenya has bought a floor in a building, and I'm happy to state that during the UNGA conference, the Senator Ledama was with us.
With Canva, it's so easy. It'll
In that very space that has been bought by the Kenyans in New York. But we have other assets. We have residential assets and so forth. And when we said that we have a global strategy, a strategy being developed for our global assets, we are going to share this conversation with you so that we can all have a unified position as Kenyans on how we can unleash the value and the potential of the assets we have in different countries abroad. There are quite a number, whether on the African continent, Europe, or now as we are talking in the US and so forth, or Asia. We need time to have a serious conversation on these assets. I wish to reiterate the issue about compensation, which the Senator for Machakos raised, and I want to reiterate that we are looking at it, but we must be conscious of the fact that we cannot dictate to the American Congress. We can submit Kenya's situation, but the procedure of their operations, their standing orders, we cannot override that as a country. But we continue engaging so that the matter can receive the necessary attention from the Congress. Thank you.
Yes, your question hasn't been responded to adequately.
Mr. Speaker, I think the PCS forgot to respond on my labor attaches, considering, apart from the agreements on labor immigration, whether our 52 consulate and embassies have attaches to assist, especially transiting Kenyans to new labor environments.
You may proceed, Honorable Prime CS.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me, Senator Nandi. Not all our missions. I mean, we cannot have labor attaches in all the missions, and it's all a question of the resource and assessing the demand in a specific area. But under the consular services, we are trying to provide a holistic response and advice and support to issues that may be labor related. Thank
you. Senator Shakila.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister is regarding the dual citizenship. There's an issue whereby it is clearly enshrined in the Constitution, people are entitled for dual citizenship, but it has proved to be very difficult. If any Kenyan from diaspora is requesting for citizenship here in our country, it is more expensive than getting a citizenship outside in the foreign country. I don't know what measures the ministry is putting to ensure that our Kenyans who are outside the country, they're entitled for their constitutional right by acquiring a dual citizenship, and if there's any special department which they can go and get their passports without further delays or bribing or any kind of challenges. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Prime CS, proceed to respond, please.
Mr. Speaker, the only department that would deal with this is the Immigration Department. As I indicated, I think it was raised a little bit earlier, that we may need to have some specifics on some of this so that we can jointly with the Immigration Department identify the bottlenecks so that we can make this a little smoother. So if the Honorable Senator has some time, I wouldn't mind having some conversation on some detail on the specific cases that you'll be talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Prime CS, for showing up for purposes of responding to these questions. There being no other questions directed to the Prime Cabinet Secretary, from my dashboard, there is no senator wishing to ask any question, and therefore, Prime Cabinet Secretary, you are free to leave the chamber.
Yes, how are you?
Now, honorable senators, before I let the clerk call the next order, I have a message from the National Assembly that I need to pass to the Senate.
So this is our Flippy 3. Flippy 3 is actually twice as fast. We've essentially cut down on a lot of the unnecessary.
Senator Kavindu, take your seat, please. Now, honorable senators, I wish to report that I have, pursuant to Article 152 of the Constitution, as read with Article 145(2) of the Constitution and Standing Order 46(3) of the Senate Standing Orders, received a message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the approval of a special motion for the removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Honorable Senators, you may proceed to take your seats. Honorable Senators, I did via Kenya Gazette number 13, 170, volume CXX, V1, number 157, dated the 9th of October 2024, upon today, Wednesday, the 9th of October 2024, at 9:30 a.m., as the sitting convened for the purpose of hearing the charges in the matter of the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Honorable Senators, the message dated Tuesday, the 8th of October 2024, was received in my office on Wednesday, the 9th of October 2024, and indicated that the National Assembly had resolved, with the support of 282 members, being at least 2/3 of all members of the National Assembly, that pursuant to the provisions of Articles 145(2), as read with Article 151(b) and 2 of the Constitution, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, be removed from office by impeachment on the following grounds. Ground number 1, gross violation of Articles 10, 2A, B, and C, 27(4), 73(1)A, and 2B, 75(1)C, and 129(2) of the Constitution, and Articles 147(1) as read together with Article 131(2)(c) and D of the Constitution. 2, gross violation of Articles 147(1) and 152(1) of the Constitution by undermining the President and the Cabinet and the effective discharge of the national government's executive mandate. Number 3, gross violation of Articles 6(2), 10(2)(a), 174, 186(1), 189(1), and the fourth schedule to the Constitution by undermining devolution. 4, gross violation of Article 161 of the Constitution on the institutional and decisional independence of judges. Number 5, gross violation of Articles 3(1) and 148(5)(a) of the Constitution on the fidelity to the oath of office and allegiance. Number 6, serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes under Section 13(1)(a) and 62 of the National Cohesion and Integration Act. Number 7, serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed gross economic crimes under Section 45(1), 46, 47(a)(3), and 48(1) of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and Sections 2, 3, 4, and 7 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. Number 8, serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes by continuously misleading members of the public through false, malicious, divisive, and insightful remarks that are contrary to the provisions of Section 132 of the Penal Code and Section 29 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. Number 9, gross misconduct that is incompatible with the high calling and dignified status of the office of the Deputy President and a member of the Cabinet and the National Security Council. His Excellency, the Deputy President has publicly attacked and undermined the work of the National Security Intelligence Service and its officers. Number 10, gross misconduct by openly or publicly insubordinating the President, who is the head of state and government. And lastly, gross misconduct by persistently bullying state and public officers. Honorable Senators, you may walk in and take a seat. Senator Okoli, take your seat. Honorable Senators, annexed to the message conveying the said resolution of the National Assembly are the following documents. 1, copy of the notice of special motion and affidavit of the Honorable.
Show your daughter how much you love her with this beautiful gift. It says,
Ekomas Mwenge Mutuse, OGW MP, dated the 26th of September 2024 and received on the 27th of September 2024, running from page 40 to 42. 2, electronic evidence relating to the special motion contained in a flash disk. Order papers for the 1st of October 2024. Communication from the Chair, number 046 of 2024, issued on Tuesday, the 1st of October 2024. Communication from the Chair, number 047 of 2024, issued on Tuesday, the 1st of October 2024. Certified Hansard and votes and proceedings of 1st of October 2024. Communication from the Chair, number 048 of 2024, issued on the 2nd of October 2024. Letters of appointment of advocates, Swanya and Company Advocates for His Excellency the Deputy President, Dastan Omari Advocates for Morani Manufacturers Limited. Letter to His Excellency the Deputy President forwarding the notice of motion. Affidavit of service on His Excellency the Deputy President. Order paper for 2nd of October 2024. Certified Hansard and votes and proceedings for the 2nd of October 2024. Public participation advertisement of the 2nd of October 2024 for Daily Nation newspaper, Standard newspaper, and the Star newspaper. Public participation advertisement of the 3rd of October 2024 for the Daily Nation newspaper, Standard newspaper, Star newspaper, and Taifa Leo. Public views templates, English and Swahili. Memo to constituency county office managers dated the 4th of October 2024. Public participation advertisement for the 4th of October 2024 in the Daily Nation newspaper, Standard newspaper, and the Star newspaper. Order issued by the High Court sitting at Kerugoya on Friday, the 4th of October 2024. A press statement by the Clerk of the National Assembly on the extension of public participation issued on the 4th of October 2024. Public participation advertisement of 5th of October 2024 placed on the Standard newspaper and the Nation newspaper. Public participation report tabled on the 8th of October 2024. Response to the notice of special motion from His Excellency the Deputy President received on the 8th of October 2024 at 4 p.m. Electronic evidence by His Excellency the Deputy President relating to the special motion contained in a flash disk. Order paper for the 8th of October 2024. Communication from the Chair number 049 of 2024 issued on the 8th of October 2024 and a certified Hansard and votes on proceedings for 8th of October 2024. Honorable Senators, kindly work and take your seats. Honorable Senators, this impeachment motion is unique and unprecedented, as it is the first ever to propose the removal from office by impeachment of a Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. This moment calls for deep reflection on the critical responsibility of the Senate in investigating such proposal for removal of state officers from office. Senator Eddy, be attentive. The impeachment process is a fundamental tool of legislative oversight and a crucial aspect of the constitutional mechanism for checks and balances. The process is invoked by legislatures and in particular, in our case, Parliament and county assemblies as a safeguard for good governance and integrity in public service. Now, honorable senators, as you may well be aware, the Senate has been entrusted by the Constitution with a singular role to sit as a quasi-judicial body to investigate any proposed removal from office by impeachment of the President, Deputy President, county governors, and deputy county governors, and to make a determination on the alleged infractions of the Constitution and other laws. As this matter comes before you, I cannot underscore enough the immense public interest that this matter has elicited, and for good reason. This is yet another opportunity for the Senate to demonstrate its fidelity to the Constitution and to live up to its reputation.
Hourly Amazon employees earn an average of more than $20 an hour with
It is therefore behoves the Senate as the trial chamber to maintain integrity and impartiality in this administration of justice and to make a determination on this matter purely based on its merits. Honorable Senators, in terms of the way forward, the manner of disposing of this impeachment motion will not be significantly different from how the Senate has previously investigated and determined the proposed removal from office by impeachment of county governors and deputy county governors. Standing Order 781 of the Senate, standing orders, as read together with Articles 152 and 145(3)(b) of the Constitution, provide the Senate with two options on how to proceed with this matter. Senate may, one, by resolution, appoint a special committee comprising 11 of its members to investigate the matter, or two, investigate the matter in plenary. In this regard, the Senate Majority Leader will, at an appointed time during this sitting, give a notice of motion and move a motion for the establishment of a special committee. Should the motion be carried, the special committee will investigate the matter and report to the Senate on whether it finds the particulars of the allegations against the Deputy President to have been substantiated. In the event that the motion for the establishment of a special committee does not pass, the Senate will proceed to investigate the matter in plenary. Consequently, I will appoint a date for the commencement of the hearing of the evidence for purposes of the investigation. Now, honorable senators, I wish to emphasize that the debate on the motion for establishment of a special committee shall be confined to the matter of the motion. That is, whether or not to establish the special committee. It shall be improper and out of order to debate the substance of the impeachment, its merits, propriety, prudence, or constitutionality or legality of the process that have preceded the submission of the matter to the Senate. In the meantime, and during the pendence of this impeachment process in the Senate, I wish to caution honorable senators to desist from publicly commenting on the merits or demerits of the impeachment motion. Doing so will amount to anticipation of debate, which is an infringement of Standing Order 99 of the Senate Standing Orders. Honorable senators, to make it clear, it shall constitute gross disorderly conduct within the meaning of Standing Order 122 for a senator to make comments, whether written or spoken, in relation to the conduct of the Deputy President or the impeachment process, which is outside the confines of the impeachment proceedings, as such comments may prejudice the just outcome of this matter. As I conclude, I urge all honorable senators to stay true to the oath of office and exercise the highest level of responsibility on this particular matter. I thank you. Now, honorable senators, a supplementary order paper has been circulated. I believe it's been posted to your gadgets. You may now abandon the order paper that we have been using earlier on and switch to the new order paper. Clerk, you may now proceed to call the next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to give notice of the following motion, which is the establishment of a special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by way of impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. That whereas pursuant to Article 151B and 2 and Article 145 of the Constitution and the National Assembly Standing Orders number 64 and 65, on the 8th of October 2024, the National Assembly approved a special motion for the removal from office by impeachment of H.E. Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And further, whereas by letter reference NADLP TBO MTS 2024 025, dated 8th of October 2024 and received in the office of the Speaker of the Senate on the 9th of October 2024. The Speaker of the National Assembly informed the Speaker of the Senate of the approval of the special motion by the National Assembly and further forwarded to the Speaker of the Senate documents in evidence of the proceedings of the National Assembly. And whereas pursuant to Article 145(3)(b) of the Constitution, as read together with Article 152 of the Constitution and Standing Orders 78(1) and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate may by resolution appoint a special committee comprising 11 of its members to investigate the matter. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 145(3)(b), the Constitution as read together with Article 152 of the Constitution and the Standing Orders of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate resolves to constitute a special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of H.E. Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 8, motion, establishment of a special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
If you're a social media manager like me, HoneyBook has tools that make getting paid so much easier.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's a motion on the, I beg to move the following motion. The establishment of a special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of H.E. Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. That whereas pursuant to Article 151B and 2, Article 145 of the Constitution and the National Assembly Standing Orders 64 and 65 on 8th of October 2024, the National Assembly approved a special motion for the removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And further, whereas by letter reference NADLP/TBO/MTS 2024 025, dated 8th of October 2024, received in the office of the Speaker of the Senate on the 9th of October 2024, the Speaker of the National Assembly informed the Speaker of the Senate of the approval of the special motion by the National Assembly, and further forwarded to the Speaker of the Senate documents in evidence of the proceedings of the National Assembly. And whereas pursuant to Article 145(3)(b) of the Constitution, as read together with Article 152 of the Constitution and Standing Order 78(1) and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate may, by resolution, appoint a special committee comprising of 11 of its members to investigate the matter. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 145(3)(b) of the Constitution, as read together with Article 152 of the Constitution and Standing Order 78(1) of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate resolves to constitute a special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, this is uncharted territory. For the first time, the Senate of the Republic of Kenya is being invited to conduct an impeachment hearing of a Deputy President. Much as this is constitutional, Mr. Speaker, it's the first time that this is happening. And there is a proposal before us as a House, as per our standing orders, to either consider this matter. We have two options as per our standing orders, to either consider this matter by a special committee or the plenary. The motion before us, Mr. Speaker, is a proposal to the House that we select 11 of our members from both sides of the House to consider this impeachment and advise us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what is the excitement in the House. I have said already that this has never happened before, but that's the proposal. That should we, and I want to urge members to agree with me, that we elect 11 of our wisest and most trusted senators, Mr. Speaker, who we think have the sufficient wisdom to read on our behalf, make a decision, and as you know, as per our standing orders, Mr. Speaker, should they elect that the matters have not been substantiated, the matter dies, and there is no recourse for the House. However, should they confirm any of the 11 charges, even one, Mr. Speaker, then they will invite the rest of us to join them in making a decision. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, this is not a matter that I want to speak long to, because there's more serious matters that lay ahead with regards to this particular motion, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I want to invite the Senator for Nairobi, Senator Edwin Watenya Sifuna, to second this motion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As you have indicated in your communication, indeed, this is a matter that is extremely unique, that has elicited immense public attention. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, given the mood of the House and especially on the minority side, I respectfully decline to second that motion.
Now, Senator Oburu. Order, honorable senators, you will note that the Senate Majority Leader has moved a motion pursuant to Articles 145(3)(b) of the Constitution and Standing Order 78(1) for the establishment of a special committee to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, AGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. The motion has, however, failed to get a seconder. Now, Standing Order 70 of the Senate Standing Orders states as follows. The question on any motion shall not be proposed unless it shall have been seconded, and any motion that is not seconded shall be deemed to have been withdrawn and shall not be moved again in the same session unless with the permission of the Speaker. Honorable Senators, as I communicated earlier today during the sitting, by way of a message on the resolution of the National Assembly, Article 145(3)(b) of the Constitution, as read together with Article 78(1), provides that the Senate, by resolution, may appoint a special committee comprising 11 of its members to investigate the matter. The motion having been deemed to be withdrawn.
This is the all-new Tempur-Pedic Adapt mattress, and we designed it to help make aches and pains.
Pursuant to Standing Order 71, the proposal for a special committee is defeated. The Senate will therefore proceed with the investigation of the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, AGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, in plenary. Honorable Senators, in line with the schedule of activities for an impeachment hearing in plenary, I hereby give the following directions. A, the clerk to issue invitations to appear to the Deputy President today, Wednesday, the 9th of October, 2024. B, the clerk to issue invitations to appear to the National Assembly today, Wednesday, the 9th of October, 2024. The parties to file their responses with the office of the clerk of the Senate by Monday, the 14th of October, 2024, by 5 p.m. D, the clerk to circulate documents received from the parties, including the plenary hearing program, to all honorable senators upon receipt on Monday, 14th of October, 2024. And the Senate shall then investigate the matter in plenary on Wednesday, the 16th, and Thursday, the 17th of October, 2024. The Senate is accordingly guided. Thank you. Any clarification, Senator Fernandi?
Mr. Speaker, looking at the directions that we are given, I want to agree with the Senate Majority Leader that this matter is very unique. It is uncharted territory. We are so used to impeachment of governors as we have done before. Mr. Speaker, when you look at our understanding Order 78 on Senate standing orders, and also, Mr. Speaker, I needed your guidance and clarity on the process, because looking at Standing Order 78 on the removal procedure for removal from state office, which includes the removal of the president, deputy president, or state office. Mr. Speaker, I want to invite Mr. Speaker to request, when you read under Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to get second schedule of our standing orders, part 1, rules of procedure when considering removal in plenary, either the president or the deputy president. When you look at rule number 12, subject to these rules, the hearing of the evidence, once it commenced, shall proceed and continue on until the Senate concludes the hearing of the matter. So, Speaker, this extrapolates itself from Article 145, 150 in the removal of either the president or the deputy president, considering this a matter of national interest, and it will involve a lot of process, evidence producing, and many other procedures. So, Speaker, considering the immense, would it be in order to request that, as per your direction, you increase even an extra day? You know, Mr. Speaker, they say justice should not be seen, should not only be seen, but to be seen to be done. Oh, okay, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable senators.
Mr.
Order.
Speaker, I'm happy.
Let the Senator Fernandez say it, do we understand?
Yes.
Proceed.
And Mr. Speaker, I am directly translating from my Kalenjin mind, so members will have to bear with. Mr. Speaker, justice should not only be done, but should be seen to be done, Mr. Speaker. You know, we went to group of schools, some of us. Mr. Speaker, the point I wanted to make is that since the plenary process will allow Kenyans to follow, would it be in order whether we convict or acquit, because the law house, which was pre-trial chamber, and this is the real trial chamber, Mr. Speaker, where we shall be looking and setting precedent for future impeachment. I'm not predicting that there will be impeachment of president or deputy presidents in future, but Mr. Speaker, the point I wanted to make, and I don't know why Senator Sifuna is irritated. You'll have your time. Why are you worried? Mr. Speaker, that is what I want to conclude by saying, Mr. Speaker, just add an extra day so that the accusers, which is the National Assembly, can have elaborate time to present their case, and also the deputy president can have the time to present their case. So that, Mr. Speaker, when they move to another fora, they will have opportunity of having the opportunity of being given a chance in the principles of natural justice. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that indulgence, and I will properly be guided. Thank you.
Senator Fernandez, as we sit here, we don't know the number of witnesses that will be called. We don't know the volumes of documentation that will be filed. And therefore, let us go by the 2 days that I've communicated. One thing that the Senate will do, it is going to give adequate time to both parties. That's the much we are going to do as a Senate. No party will leave the Senate complaining about inadequacy of time to plead their case. Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And we conform to the directions that you've given and the communication that you have also given. And I actually agree to the wisdom of the Senator from Nairobi, that this is a matter of serious public interest. And the matter that is before us is so weighty, it cannot be left to the hands of 11 people. We need to hear it in plenary. And I also want to plead, based on two arguments, Honorable Speaker, looking at the communication that you've read, the number of grounds that have been said that are founded in this motion, Honorable Speaker, of impeachment. There are 11 grounds, Honorable Speaker. And in the experience that we have had as a House, I think this will be the highest number of grounds that we have ever looked at in as far as processing a motion of impeachment is concerned. That is my first concern. Number two, when we last dealt with the last impeachment of Governor from Meru, the reason why we were rushing against time and we didn't have to, we didn't allow members to debate and give their input. And I would not want us to get ourselves in that kind of a situation, that members want to give their contribution, they want to convince the others, because the reason why a motion, we have to debate on this motion is that I can convince the other members that I think the deputy president should be removed or should not be removed. And we didn't get that opportunity during the last sitting. Why? Because the dates that had been gazetted for that particular removal were lapsing that particular day, and we had to vote. We had to start voting before 12. So if we get ourselves in the situation that you say that we are processing this motion on Wednesday and Thursday, and it is Thursday, we are almost done with the proceedings at Thursday, 11:30. Then we don't have time to debate. It is upon this reason why then, even if we leave the 2 days that you have communicated, then we need to leave it open that if we find ourselves that we are just done with witnesses, both the accusers and the ones that are being accused, the defense team, Honorable Speaker, if you're not able to debate, then we can come the next day, debate and take a vote. We should not then hurry this process as we hurried the last process. And it's not that we hurried it because we wanted. Many members wanted to contribute. It is the reason why the voting was very acrimonious. That's what. Thank you very much, Daktari, for that. Nyandaro is far, and we have small challenges. So, it was very acrimonious here. You saw many members here, and it was not very neat. I would not want us to. I would not want to find us in such a situation. I wish you'd allow that even if we get to Thursday, and you have not gotten to debating, you can allow us to come on Friday, debate and vote.
You are the future. Pursue tech careers with the DeVry Scholars Program. Advance your ambition.
To build the Honda CR-V Hybrid,
Yes, Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's two things. One is on the matter of your communication about how then we conduct ourselves from today going forward. Mr. Speaker, you have given direction. These phones. You have given direction, Mr. Speaker, that members should restrain themselves from making public utterances, especially on the substance of this impeachment, which is a good direction, Mr. Speaker, because we are going into a long weekend and we're engaging with our constituents. The temptation to prosecute this matter even before it comes here is very high. So that caution is good, Mr. Speaker. Only that, Mr. Speaker, I will hasten to add that listening to the public wherever I go, and I don't go to a lot of places, Mr. Speaker, the whole world, the whole country is looking up to the Senate for justice to be seen to be done. In fact, there wasn't so much attention on the proceedings in the National Assembly. A lot of people saying, let's wait for this matter to go to the Senate. Mr. Speaker, this is a time that then the Senate of the Republic of Kenya must demonstrate real leadership. And the prayers that were being made by Senator Cheragay and Senator Medhu sit very well. That, the Speaker, the assurance you have given that both parties will have sufficient time to prosecute their cases and to do what they have to do. The Speaker, let that assurance also go out that the judges sitting on this matter will also have sufficient time to reason, to caucus. Mr. Speaker, and when there is need for even members to take time off, 30, 40 minutes, to caucus and steer this thing properly. So, Mr. Speaker, we don't have, I would really hate to see a situation where we end up the way we did with the Kawira case,
the Governor Kawira case, where the last minute of voting is so chaotic, the Speaker. The Speaker, one other thing that you may also need to...
Senator Kadure, just let him conclude so that I just give directions on this matter. Let us not prolong this debate.
The Speaker, let me just conclude by saying that the other thing that you may also guide us now and into the debate is try and teach us on the issue of patience. People should patiently listen to others.
Just conclude.
And especially when I express an opinion that is not in line with your opinion.
What is your point of order, Senator?
Oh, my
Kadure, because
goodness.
you're really insisting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, you know, if members will go that direction of Kawira Mwangaza case, Mr. Speaker, this case is in court. And what they're implying is that what was processed here was not right. So it is not it is not standing very well, Mr. Speaker, sir, because this matter has not been determined in the court. And one of the issues that has been raised by the parties is that some of the members did not vote. There was no time for discussion and all those matters, Mr. Speaker. So I think it will not be fair to the Meru County community if we discuss this matter now, because it is an issue which is in court, Mr. Speaker.
Good. Honorable Senators, we shall conclude. Now it's me to conclude, Senator Wambua. Now this is my direction, and it's very much what I've already directed. Honorable Wambua, which floor I have taken away from you? So, Senator Wambua, you're out of order and leave the chamber now for the rest of the day. Leave the chamber. We need to be orderly in this matter. We're going to handle a very heavy matter. We cannot have any senator heckling the speaker. As we go to this impeachment, you need to behave, Senator Wambua. Leave the chamber now for the rest of the sitting. Leave the chamber. Leave the chamber.
Billionaires are paying less in taxes than we do.
You're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts?
Well, I'm not rich as hell. Kamala Harris will cut taxes for us and make billionaires pay their fair share. Kamala is fighting for us.
Looking for a promising career in IT? Did you know that IT positions will grow by 33%?
Leave the chamber, Senator Wambua. Honorable Senators, the chapter we are just about to open, the process we are just about to undertake is extremely heavy. The country and the world is watching. Decorum is the least we'll be expecting from members. Senator Fonandi has raised a valid concern. Upon reading these charges, we have 10 days to conclude this process. I have directed that this matter be heard within 2 days. We have not seen the kind of documentation that is going to be filed. We have not seen the number of witnesses that are going to be called by each party. Once we see the documentation and the list of witnesses, and it becomes obvious that we cannot conclude this matter within 2 days, we have Friday. And therefore, let us cross the bridge when we get there. But one thing I want to assure the country is the Senate is going to do justice in this matter. All the parties are going to be given a fair, they're going to have their day in the Senate. There will be zero complaints after the conclusion of this matter. Let's rest it there, Honorable Senator. Next order.
Order number 9, procedural motion to hold sittings on Monday, 14th October 24, and alter the hours of meeting on Tuesday, 15th October 2024.
Majority Leader. Let's make progress, Senator Fatuma Dulu.
Mr. Speaker,
Let's make progress.
I beg to move the motion, which is for the Senate to hold sittings on Monday, the 14th of October 2024, and to alter the the hours of meeting on Tuesday, 15th of October 2024. That notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made pursuant to Standing Order number 32 of October of February, Order number 32 on 15th of February 2024, and 26th of June 2024, 19th of August 2024, and 17th of September 2024, and the approval of the Senate calendar, regular sessions for the third session 2024. The Senate resolves: 1, pursuant to Standing Order number 34-4C,
State Majority Leader.
thank you.
May the Majority Leader be heard in silence.
Pursuant to Standing Order number 34-4C, to hold its sittings on Monday, the 14th of October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. until the conclusion of business listed in the order paper of the day. 2, pursuant to Standing Order number 34-4B, to hold a morning sitting on Tuesday, the 15th of October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And 3, pursuant to Standing Order number 34-4A, extend its sitting time on Tuesday, 15th October 2024, afternoon sitting until the conclusion of the business listed in the order paper of the day, in order to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Honorable Dr. Eric Kipkoech Mutai, the Governor of Kericho County. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a procedural motion, and we have pointed out that for lack of flair in drafting both the special notice, special motion such as this, and the order gathered notice, Mr. Speaker, we found ourselves with the challenge which many of our colleagues are actually discussing right now, where they felt that in handling of an impeachment procedure, we had too much to do within such a short time. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, if you see the way the motion has been drafted, it is until the business listed on the order paper is concluded on that day. So it's not unusual, Mr. Speaker, that we leave this house on certain days at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Has happened many times before, Mr. Speaker, because impeachments have got serious consequences. And impeachments, Mr. Speaker, are almost the last resort in a dispute resolution, Mr. Speaker, between the parties that are before each of us. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge senators, given if they approve this timetable, next week will be quite a heavy week for senators. On Monday and Tuesday, Mr. Speaker, we have this impeachment. You have just given direction, Mr. Speaker, that on Wednesday and Thursday as well, we have the impeachment motion or process of the Deputy President. Therefore, a lot of energy is required from senators next week. So all the senators, including the young ones like my kid brother Eddie, Mr. Speaker, need to spare energy this weekend, and so that next week they have a lot of energy in the House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, is just to note, Mr. Speaker, that this is a simple procedure motion, which I don't expect that there'd be a debate about. Just agreeing on the times so that we can get the response and begin on the process. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request Senator Okongo Omogeni, my neighbor from Nyamira County, to second. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Okongo Omogeni. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I stand to second the motion by Majority Leader and the Senator of Kericho, my neighbor, and I agree that the matter is weighty. The Senate is on the spotlight. This is the time we need to demonstrate to the country that we are fair, we can discharge our functions impartially without fear and favor. And I second the motion, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made pursuant to Standing Order 32 on 15 February 2024, 26 June 2024, 19 August 2024, and 17 September 2024 on the approval of the Senate calendar regular sessions for the third session 2024, the Senate resolves: one, pursuant to Standing Order 34 4C, to hold sittings on Monday, 14th October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. until conclusion of business listed in the order paper of the day. Two, pursuant to Standing Order 34B, to hold a morning sitting on Tuesday, 15th October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And three, pursuant to Standing Order 4A, to extend the sitting time on Tuesday, 15th October 2024, afternoon sitting until conclusion of business listed in the order paper of the day, in order to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Honorable Dr. Eric Kipkoech Mutai, the Governor of Kericho County. Honorable Senators, I can see a few senators lined up here on my screen. So is that the mood of the House? Now let me hear the wisdom of Senator Sigei Wakiri.
Mr. Speaker, you may proceed to put the question.
Need life insurance? Taking the first step is easy. Start your quote now or talk to your State Farm agent to find a plan that's right for you.
Senator Andan Dulo Fatuma. Senator Derito John Kenywa. Majority leader will not teach me how to chair this session.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, mimi nasumbuka kwa sababu tayari tumejitia katika kitanzi, kwa sababu tayari tumesema zile siku ambazo tutakuwa tumezitenga ndio tuweze kujadili mswada huu. Bwana Spika, ni vile vile tukijipata katika ule mjadala alafu kutakuwa na masuala mengine nyeti. Bwana Spika, naona tutajipata katika tu ile sehemu ya kwamba hatuna muda wa kutosha kuyaangazia yale masuala kindani, kwa sababu tuwezi tukasema tutaenda siku ile nyingine ambayo ni siku ya Wednesday, kwa sababu tayari tumeitenga kwa shughuli nyingine tofauti. So kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, ninasema kuendelea mbele Bwana Spika, pengine tumekuwa tukijipatia muda zaidi, lakini naunga mkono Bwana Spika.
Kwa hoja hii Senator Kinywa, kwa hoja hii tuko nayo, iko wazi kabisa ya kwamba Jumanne tarehe 15 afternoon sitting tutakaa mpaka tumalize biashara, business listed in the order paper of the day. So that is why the majority leader and Vice Senator Okech to preserve more energy over the weekend, so that even you can sit up to 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning until we clear the business that will be listed on the order paper. It is not specific on the day. It is until the business on the order paper is concluded. So it is not specific to midnight on Tuesday. It is until we clear the business. So I think you can also familiarize yourself with the order paper before or even when the question is put. Honorable Senators, I put the question that, notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made pursuant to Standing Order 32 on 15th February 2024, 26th June 2024, 19th August 2024, and 17th September 2024 on the approval of the Senate calendar regular sessions for the third session 2024, the Senate resolves one, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4C, to hold sittings on Monday, 14th October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. until conclusion of business listed in the order paper of the day. And two, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4B, to hold a morning sitting on Tuesday, 15th October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And three, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4A, to extend its sitting time on Tuesday, 15th October 2024, afternoon sitting until conclusion of business listed in the order paper of the day, in order to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Honorable Dr. Eric Kipkoech Mutai, the Governor of Kericho County. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next one.
Order number 10, motion. Report of the 9th Interparliamentary Union Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians held in Hanoi, Vietnam from 15th to 17th September 2023.
Senator Mevdu was to move this motion, but I cannot see him around. Next order. So this motion is deferred until next time that will be allocated. Next order.
Order number 11, motion. Reports of the Kenya delegation to the 147th and 148th assemblies of the IPU and related meetings held in Luanda, Angola from 23rd to 27th October 2023, and in Geneva, Switzerland from 23rd to 27th March 2024, respectively.
Senator Catherine Muma.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. I wish to move the motion on the reports of the Kenya delegation to the 147th and 148th assemblies of the International Parliamentary Union, IPU, and related meetings that were held in Luanda, Angola from 23rd to 27th October 2023, and in Geneva, Switzerland from 23rd to 27th March 2024. That the Senate notes the reports of the Kenya delegation to the 147th and 148th assemblies of the Interparliamentary Union and related meetings in Luanda and the one in Geneva. Honorable Senators, Honorable Speaker, just key to note that the Kenyan delegation
The biggest companies in the world are willing to pay big bucks for anyone who's able to code. And you may think that's not you, but what if I told you there's a way to learn?
Is represented in 5 committees by different members, including John Kiarie, who is in the Committee to Promote Respect for International Humanitarian Law. We have Honorable Naisula Lesuda, member of the Committee on Sustainable Development. We have Honorable Millie Odhiambo, who is the president of the Committee on the Human Rights for Parliamentarians. And then we have Honorable Rebecca Tonkei, who is a member of the Committee on the United Nations Affairs. Honorable Speaker, in the meeting in Luanda, I was appointed to be a member of the working group on science and technology. And the key activity in Luanda was the appointment of the Right Honorable Speaker Ackson Tulia from Tanzania as the first woman president to the IPU. And the Kenya delegation participated actively in the campaign to ensure that that seat came to East Africa. Honorable Speaker, in the Geneva meeting, one of the key issues that was discussed in the working group on science and technology was the preparation by IPU of a charter on the ethics of science and technology, so that parliamentarians can now start being involved in policies relating to matters, science and technology, especially issues of ethics of things like artificial intelligence. And Mr. Speaker, as we are speaking this week, the IPU meeting will begin in Geneva this week. Unfortunately, we will not be able to attend because of the impeachment program that we have, but the charter developed by this working group will be discussed. One of the things that is being recommended, Mr. Speaker, is parliaments around the world to start forming committees on science and technology to ensure that the scientists and parliamentarians can have conversation so that parliament can give guidance in terms of policy, and scientists can also engage with them so that we don't have science going rogue that is going to harm human beings. Mr. Speaker, I support. I submit. I lay the reports.
Senator Muma, you say you beg to move, and then also you get a seconder.
Apologies, Mr. Speaker. I wish to ask Senator Omogeni to second. Thank you.
Just pronounce yourself that you beg to move, then you ask him, request him to second. Okay.
I beg to move and ask Senator Omogeni to second.
Senator Kwongo Mugeni.
Yes.
And members, the reports are on our gadgets, so you can just check and get something to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to second the report on the 147 Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union meeting and related matters that was held in Rwanda, Angola, that has been tabled by Senator Catherine Muma. Mr. Speaker, we live in a community of nations, and this initiative is very important among parliaments. It does a very good work, Mr. Speaker, because we cannot live in an island, Mr. Speaker. We need to measure what we are doing with what our brothers are doing in the neighboring countries, Mr. Speaker. And we hope, Mr. Speaker, as we send our members of parliament to these committees, we can deal with some of the serious issues that are affecting countries, especially, Mr. Speaker, issues of corruption. Mr. Speaker, when I used to serve in EACC, countries who are trying to discuss, Mr. Speaker, how you can ensure that money that is being moved from one country to the other is discouraged by nations. I was seeing a debate, Mr. Speaker, on a TV station this morning, and the senator for Kisii was disclosing that there are governors who have bought 8 flats country in Europe called Spain, and he was appealing to the
Under Kamala Harris's plan, no one making less than $400,000 would pay a penny more in taxes.
We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead.
That happens a lot, but
Ethics and Corruption Commission to ensure that issues dealing with corruption are dealt with decisively, and the money that is sent to our counties is used for the benefit of the people who reside in counties. Issues dealing with climate change, Mr. Speaker, you can see the kind of floods that we are seeing in the US, Mr. Speaker. We need to be conscious that as a country, Mr. Speaker, we need not only to take care of our country called Kenya, Mr. Speaker, but that we need to also borrow from what we are seeing happening in other nations, Mr. Speaker. If we don't protect our environment, Mr. Speaker, we are exposing ourselves to risk. Issues like the threats that we face from terrorism. Mr. Speaker, before terrorists hit our nations, I remember that whenever we used to escort our brothers or relatives to the US, we used to walk inside the airport to escort them right to the entry to the airport. But because of terrorism, Mr. Speaker, you cannot even access, you can't enter the airport, Mr. Speaker, because of what terrorism has done to the country. So this is a very important, Mr. Speaker. We need to preach peace. We need to have tolerance among various faiths. In this house, Mr. Speaker, when I look at Senator Faki, I look at him as a Kenyan brother. I don't look at him as a Muslim. And I'm sure he also looks at me as a Christian, Mr. Speaker. We need to encourage people in the human race to live as brothers and sisters. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I second this motion and pray that we can be a country that can preach peace. Nobody is happy with what is happening in the Middle East. We are not happy with the escalation of war in the Middle East. When there is war in the Middle East, the effects affect many countries. I hope that the UN, the United Nations, can push for a peaceful resolution with the disputes we are seeing in the Middle East, Mr. Speaker, so that Palestinians, Israelis, the people in Syria, and all those countries, Mr. Speaker, we want to see them live in peace, Mr. Speaker. When I was a young child, I used to hear about Palestinian Liberation Organization led by Yasser Arafat. Now I'm almost becoming a senior citizen. The disputes in the Middle East are still ongoing. The wars that we used to see in Angola, you still keep on hearing about war in Angola, Mr. Speaker, the war in Chad. We need to see the universe having countries that can live in peace, where we are all brothers and sisters who can cross from one border to the other, like what's happening within the European nations, where you can move from one country in Europe to the other. I wish that can extend to the whole world, Mr. Speaker. I don't need to queue at the American embassy seeking for a visa, reporting there at 6 a.m., pay a whooping, I think close to 100,000 before I can get my visa to travel to the US. We need to accept that the human race, we are created by God as one person in the Garden of Eden, and that is the spirit that we should see world over. So, Mr. Speaker, I second. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, Under Senator, can wait a bit. I'll give you 1 minute to close the door. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate notes the reports of the Kenyan delegation to the 147th and 148th Assemblies of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, and related meetings held in one, Luanda, Angola, from 23rd to 27th October 2023, and on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 29th February 2024, and Geneva, Switzerland, from 23rd to 27th March 2024, and on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 30th May 2024. I'm now inviting senators to contribute to this very, very important report on interparliamentary union. You know, Senator Mugatana actually contributes on these international issues so much, but today I don't know where his mind is. I think I'm being distracted by the senator from Ram County. From Ram County. Because this is similar to what you do in the
yes, Mr. Speaker.
In the African Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to debate the report of the Interparliamentary Union that was held in Angola, Luanda, Angola, from 23rd to 27th October 2023. Mr. Speaker, as you have correctly talked about
Were you recently injured in a car accident? Look at this check for $160,000. If you're looking to get money you're owed for an injury, I want you to imagine you and your family getting that money, because I know a way that you can. Now, before you think I'm crazy, I want to show you how you can get the money that you are owed in the next 30 days. Now, if you've thought
there is a very big role that parliaments all over the world play in terms of cooperation, coordination, and ensuring that the representatives of the people around the world come together and discuss issues that are relevant. Mr. Speaker, on this meeting that was held in Luanda, a lot of things were discussed, Mr. Speaker. A lot of things were discussed, but I would like to dwell on the issue that focused on global food security. Mr. Speaker, there are many challenges, and it was recognized by the parliaments that were seated in Luanda, Angola, that many parliaments and many parts of the world are affected by the problems of food insecurity. Mr. Speaker, there are lots of problems. The world is not being able to feed itself, and there are people who are living in areas that are frequently hit by climate-related disasters. And Mr. Speaker, during this meeting in Luanda, there was a focus on what was happening in the El Nino time, at that time, Mr. Speaker. And there was a relation in these discussions about droughts that had increased. And at that time, Mr. Speaker, they were talking also about the cycles of the droughts and the El Nino phenomena that was affecting food production and jeopardizing even stability of food supply across the world. Mr. Speaker, these parliaments also discussed the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, that so many people were not able to access their farms, so many people were not able to be engaged usefully so that they can produce food. And Mr. Speaker, apart from the climate issues, the question of the COVID pandemic was discussed. Mr. Speaker, other problems, including the increase on the prices of fertilizers, was also discussed. These challenges, Mr. Speaker, were put on those parliaments and discussed, so that Kenya also was part of those discussions, Mr. Speaker, that raised the challenges affecting food, including the increase on the prices of fertilizers. Mr. Speaker, the general conclusions of our members of parliament who went there, who participated in this conference, in this interparliamentary union meeting, was that there was need for them to come back home, and on this issue of global food security, there was need for them to come back home and communicate to their governments that fresh efforts need to be put, so that, Mr. Speaker, an emphasis on food production, on stability of food supply within their own countries, so that each parliament, when they discuss there, they're supposed to come here, and then we also approve these reports, and these reports are taken to the relevant government departments to implement. So one of the important things that was discussed was the global food security. And Mr. Speaker, the resolution was that we need to come back home and tell our governments, and in this particular issue, is to talk about the strategies that the government of Kenya, like other governments, would take on new strategies that will ensure food security within their countries. Mr. Speaker, during those discussions in Angola, a total of 22 delegates took to the floor to share their experiences and insights concerning the concerning the pressing issues of ensuring a stable and sustainable food supply for the world's population. Mr. Speaker,
you know what nobody talks about when it comes to building a content creator business? That if you're not using a tool like HoneyBook to stay organized and professional in your communication, you're probably leaving thousands of dollars on the table. Hi, my name is Kea, and I find there's a lot
concerns were given from the global north, from the global south, and all these delegates, Mr. Speaker, they were able to explain their experiences, Mr. Speaker. And I have given the general challenges that we had and were explained in these debates. Every delegate explained what was happening in their home country, Mr. Speaker, and what they thought strategies that could help in terms of ensuring that food stability is achieved within the continent. Mr. Speaker, there are many strategies that were given. Some of them we are already employing, and we know our Department of Agriculture in this country is doing what it needs to do to ensure that we have enough food supply for this country. But one of the things that was discussed as a strategy and that needs to be emphasized here in Kenya is that we need, Mr. Speaker, to involve our youth in production that is agricultural production. Mr. Speaker, for a very long time, people used to think that it is unfashionable to go into agriculture. Our children, and even in our generation and the generation that followed us, a lot of people would aspire to be professionals in various fields, in engineering, in the practice of law, like I did, in medicine, in architecture, and all these other big professions. Mr. Speaker, as we went on, the other generation that came after us, they would aspire to be IT specialists. They would aspire to open companies in that area that was practically new at the time, in our time, and maybe go into technology-oriented businesses. But very few people, Mr. Speaker, would aspire to be top agriculturalists. People would aspire to inherit the lands from their parents and make them productive. Mr. Speaker, in terms of all these resolutions that were passed, and the one that I want to emphasize so much to increase our food production, Mr. Speaker, we need to make agriculture in Kenya sexy. We need to make it very attractive to the young people. We need our young people to start seeing this as an opportunity to add something. Instead, Mr. Speaker, of just thinking of opening a kiosk to sell cigarettes or something, we need to actually tell our young people that agriculture is a good thing that you can do. If you don't want to do agriculture to produce crops, we need to go into other forms of agriculture. People are raising chickens, people are raising farm animals, people are doing all manner of things around the space of agriculture. Mr. Speaker, some of the people who have really made it in this life are people who have been selling eggs, are people who have been doing business around wheat farming, are people who have been doing business around maize growing, are people who have been supplying the Kenya Meat Commission. We need to carry out a massive re-education of our minds. We must tell our children that it is good to actually be able to feed yourself. If you are at home, we must tell our children that it is good to go to the farm, and they must see us do this so that it is accepted as a fashionable thing to do. Mr. Speaker, I will not be saying enough if I don't mention the fact that some of our TV stations have done an extremely good job. And I want to single out two national TV stations that I have seen. They take their time, Mr. Speaker, to discuss about programs on agricultural production. And I'm so impressed that even the presenters, they are young people who are doing that kind of work. And Mr. Speaker, the prayer is that we will be able to push this idea, that it will be acceptable amongst our children, and it be fashionable, so that once they accept these ideas, Mr. Speaker, they will be able to go into agriculture, food production, and hopefully, Mr. Speaker, as we increase our own production within our own families, within our own villages, within our own wards, within our own constituency, we become secure, then the country as a whole will become secure. And this is the message that parliamentarians are sending to the government of Kenya when we met here. And with those very many remarks, I beg to support this report. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hourly Amazon employees earn an average of more than $20 an hour with opportunities to grow.
Some lessons start Monday.
Amazon offers hourly employees health care on day one for the whole family.
Where's Joe?
There you go. What's up, bro?
Honorable Senators, there being no other senators wishing to contribute, I call upon the mover to reply, Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I would like to thank Honorable Mungatana and Honorable Mogeni for contributing to this motion. Honorable Speaker, as we participate in international conversations with other parliaments around the world, as we attend these meetings, I wish to bring it to the attention of the House that these are spaces that are extremely important because we get to learn what is happening around the world and we borrow from each other and develop and strengthen international cooperation, particularly cooperation around the parliaments of the world. The Interparliamentary Union is the union of all parliaments of the world, except very few of those. Mr. Speaker, as we have met in during this session, very key issues have been discussed, including peace and security, and how the different nations can come together to strengthen the rules and regulations that we have internationally on peace and security, the rules and regulations around matters food security, rules and regulations around sustainable development, rules and regulations on other issues, particularly emerging issues. When I moved the motion, I spoke about the Science and Technology Committee that I'm sitting in, Mr. Speaker, that has been a very educative forum because there are so many things we take for granted. And you find that the world is actually going to centrally driven by technology. And we are all going there, but possibly not planning for it properly. And the parliaments of this world and parliamentarians do not necessarily have the capacity to be able to know what kind of policy can they support within their arms of government. So these sessions enable us to be able to converse and to be able to see how to move legislation in these areas. One of the ongoing conversations technically that is happening is the matter of internet governance. Honorable Speaker, I don't think anybody is moving serious legislation and policy around internet governance in this country. And internet governance is a complex issue that would require that we refocus, knowing that internet actually makes the globe a one center. Because with internet, you are able to access information, not just from your own country, but from other countries. And we need to be able to think on how we can have complex regulations that can ensure that as we use internet, as it enables us to move on many fronts, that it will also be able to be a safe space, particularly for those who are vulnerable, including minors. We would not know how to do these things unless we deliberately are trained on this. And I'm not aware of, at the Kenya level, any trainings that our own parliament or PSC has put in place to guide us on understanding the complex scientific areas that require that we regulate. Mr. Speaker, in the Angola meeting, one of the things that came up, one of the resolutions that was moved by the Committee on Democracy and Human Rights was a resolution on orphanage trafficking. And this, Kenya actually had 6 amendments to this resolution, and we actually managed to get 5 of them taken up. And when I came back home, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that I have actually, with the support of the legal department, we are drafting an amendment to our Child Trafficking Act, because in that act, we never contemplated trafficking that happens around the orphanage. Mr. Speaker, a lot of child trafficking is happening, and you will be.
Trump intends to enact a national sales tax that would raise prices on middle-class families by $4,000 a year. We will pass a tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
Why is Amazon paying me $600 a day? Hi, I'm Carla Marie, and the coolest part.
Amazed or shocked that part of what is happening is people will set up institutions in the name of helping children, but those institutions are being used to traffic children out of one country into another. So this is a conversation we've had in IPU, and we have resolved that as the countries go back, one of the ways of strengthening, ensuring that we police against child trafficking is to strengthen our laws on orphanage trafficking. And I have put in place something in regard to that. As I had said earlier, I'm also hoping that both National Assembly and the Senate can think of a way of coming up with committees that address science and technology in terms of impacts of technology on human rights as we move on. And I believe that as we continue to participate, we will be able to improve on legislation here. Mr. Speaker, as I finalize, I would like to make a plea that usually we participate in the big assembly meetings of IPU, of the Commonwealth, of the Pan-African Parliament. I want to state that before the big meetings, we have technical committees where the technical issues are discussed. And usually we are not facilitated to participate in that. And you'll find that when you go now to the assembly, the countries whose membership have seriously participated in the technical sessions of the committees are well versed or better versed with the issues that they are presenting. So I'd like to request that the Office of the Speaker consider that in some of these meetings that we will be able to facilitate members to participate in a few of the technical issues, particularly those that are drafting issues that come before the Assembly. I therefore wish to thank my colleagues for contributing to this motion, and I wish to ask that to request the Speaker to defer the putting of the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. This motion will be deferred to a later date. Next order.
Order number 12, motion, the report of the Kenya delegation to the extraordinary session of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament held at the Gallagher Convention Center, Midrand, South Africa, from 20th to 27th March 2024.
Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to move. This will be a very brief one. And I will request the Honorable Catherine Muma to second me. Mr. Speaker, we had the session of the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa. Mr. Speaker, the Pan-African Parliament is an important parliament because that is where all African nations come together to discuss the issues that affect Africa. Mr. Speaker, previously, those presidents who held a vision to bring Africa together and create a united Africa, the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, the likes of Julius Nyerere, and the likes of um, uh, many of these presidents who came together, they wanted to create a government, a system that would enable consultations at government levels. Mr. Speaker, once the governments agreed, it was deemed necessary to have another body where the peoples of Africa can be seated together to discuss on behalf of the representatives of the people. So then a parliament was then created, and this is where we are, the Pan-African Parliament. So Speaker, I head that delegation, but members of the delegation include our own Senator Professor Margaret Kamar. Also from the National Assembly, we have Esther Passaris, Joseph Kalasinga Majimbo.
I applied to over 200 tech jobs and got rejected from every single one of them. And then I found out about others that were landing six-figure jobs and working remotely, some of them in their early 20s and even well into their 30s, even 40s. I kept asking myself, when's it going?
And Recab Mukami. So the five of us, like all other nations, the 55 countries of Africa, we sent 5 people there. Mr. Speaker, the delegation participated in an election. This was an extraordinary meeting which was called so that we can have an election. And Mr. Speaker, so that the country can know what happens. In Pan-African Parliament, we follow the African Union parliamentary, the African Union principle of rotation, so that if the president of the Union of the Pan-African Parliament comes from the Southern Caucasus, in the next time it is the Eastern, in the next time it is the Northern, and we go on rotating like that. So these elections were done, and Mr. Speaker, it was a successful election. It brought order to the Parliament of Africa, and Mr. Speaker, it is good to note that the new committee that was elected, which we call the Bureau there, is President Honorable Chief Fortune Zephania Charumbira. The first Vice President was Honorable Professor Masuda Mohamed Lakdaf. The second Vice President was Honorable Honorable Ashebir Wale Georges Gayo. And the third Vice President was Honorable Lucia Dos Passos. Fourth Vice President was Honorable Jija Mamar Mahat. So, Mr. Speaker, it was a brief session, and there were some issues that made the Parliament not to work for some time. But after this election, those issues were resolved, and Pan-African Parliament was able to move forward. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the entire delegation that we went there. We worked very well, and we made sure that Kenya was well represented during these campaigns and even during these elections in every part. Mr. Speaker, before I sit, it's important for me to say the following, that we had an important engagement with our High Commission in South Africa. And Mr. Speaker, the High Commission in South Africa has expressed its desire that we make it clear that Kenya and South Africa have had a long relationship. Since when South Africa got its independence or its normal, its first democratically elected president in 1994, we've had good relationship with South Africa. But when it comes to trade, the message is that we are still having a very unfavorable balance of trade between the two nations. South Africa, although Kenya is a big economy, but South Africa is exporting to Kenya high value items, like they have a BMW factory there. So when they sell these things, all our agricultural and whatever products, they measure little as against the value that they send to this country. So it is time that Kenyans, and this is the message from the High Commission, it is time that Kenyans take up opportunities that are being provided in South Africa. We have signed a bilateral that allowed favorable trade so that Kenyans who are going to South Africa to do business are never disturbed. And Kenya also took the opportunity to not to require visas, just like now we don't require when we go to South Africa. South Africa followed it. So we have opportunities for those who think they can make a life to go there. So aside from the Pan-African meeting that we did, we also visited the High Commission, and the High Commission has asked us to encourage our people to also look at opportunities down in South Africa. With those very many remarks, I know I had asked the Honorable Catherine Muma to second, but I have seen, yeah? Okay, so I will then ask Honorable Muma to second the motion. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion on the report of the Kenya delegation to the extraordinary session of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament held at the Gallagher Convention Center, Midrand, South Africa from 20th to 27th March 2024. Mr. Speaker, as I have said in the earlier conversation, these meetings are very, very important, and they add to expanding our knowledge as parliamentarians and to come up.
Do you know where your vehicles are? You would if you had this. With just a little device like this, you can geolocate any of your vehicles from anywhere, all from your smartphone.
With the ideas that can help us to inject a newness and inject innovation, drawing from what other parliaments are doing around the world. The Pan-African Parliament in particular, Mr. Speaker, is one where I think we can do a lot more. And even as colleagues participate in this forum, I wish to urge them to help to bring the conversation of expanding trade in Africa a lot more. Mr. Speaker, it is strange that some West African countries have to go to Europe before they come back to East Africa. It is strange that a number of countries in Africa get simple food products all imported from Europe. When, Mr. Speaker, I think the food produce that Honorable Mungatana was speaking about is plenty on the African continent. And if we open the routings, trade routings across Africa and amongst the African countries, Mr. Speaker, we will actually enrich our continent much faster. So I would want to request that our colleagues on Pan-African, on the Pan-African Parliament steer the conversation and spearhead a conversation that can actually see an open Africa where we are trading with each other more and we are focusing a lot on intra-Africa trade than the opening up trade elsewhere. I therefore second, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the extraordinary session of the Sixth Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament held at the Gallagher Convention Center, Midrand, South Africa, from 20th to 27th March 2024, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 24th April 2024. Senator Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to support the motion on the report from the Pan-African Parliament. As has been mentioned by our chair and our very able leader of the delegation, the Honorable Mugatana. I'm a member of this delegation, Mr. Speaker. And I really appreciate the work that goes on in the Pan-African Parliament. It is out of the coming together of the African nations that we can realize the real development of the continent. As was mentioned by the Honorable Senator Catherine Muma, it surprises you that the closures of boundaries, the boundaries that we have today, have disadvantaged the continent more than it has helped. It has destroyed neighborhoods. And at the moment, Mr. Speaker, we are at the point of discussing the African Free Trade Area. You will notice, Mr. Speaker, that the boundaries, the borders between countries in this continent were established by the colonialists, not by the Africans themselves. So families were separated. And these boundaries are either roads or rivers or lakes. So they make absolutely no sense. And one very good example, Mr. Speaker, is the river that divides Uganda and Kenya, which divided the Awori family. So we have our own former president in Kenya, Moody Awori, on the side of Kenya. And the time when he was the vice president in Kenya, we had a minister in Uganda called Agri Awori. His own brother, one father, one mother, following one another in birth. But because the river divided their land and they had both sides of the land, some were called Ugandans and others were called Kenyans. This is true for most neighborhoods along the boundaries in the continent of Africa. So as the heads of state are now discussing the unification as far as trade is concerned, to enable free movement of goods and free movement of persons, it is the thing that is going to develop the continent. Because this boundary issue is what has caused enmity between peoples who were friends. It has created tension between people who didn't even know what it means to have a name called a country. So, Mr. Speaker, I want the senators here to note that very soon we are going to come to this house to request for ratification of the protocol on the African Free Trade Area after. And that is going to be a breakthrough for the continent. There are a number of protocols that we hope can be ratified soon. We have the Malabo protocol that has not been ratified in this house. We have a number of other laws, model laws that are developed by the Pan-African Parliament. In the Pan-African Parliament, Mr. Speaker, one of our projects is to develop model laws. Why model laws? We develop model laws because we are developing standards that we expect different countries to go and adopt. Now, when we pass model laws in the Pan-African Parliament,
Twisted Tea is a refreshing hard iced tea made with real brewed tea. Keep it twisted.
it is expected that every country will use the same model law to introduce amendments to their own laws so that we have some standards. And I want to say, to mention just a few areas where we need standards, Mr. Speaker. We need standards in mining so that the laws of mining and exploration can be the same. We know that Africa is very rich when it comes to minerals, but because of the different approaches to mining, because of the different ways in which policies have been crafted in the different countries, it is very easy for one to mine in Uganda, sell in Kenya using a completely different regime. And this becomes very, very dangerous, because then you have smugglers coming in. Because if it is easier to mine in Kenya and go and sell in Uganda, then the policy in Kenya allows you to mine and sell, and does not allow you to sell in the same manner that a neighbor sells. It is very easy for one to use the policies and the rules in one country to their own advantage and move to the next country to do the same. Mr. Speaker, I'm mentioning mineral resources because one of the things that is now coming up in the Pan-African Parliament is that there is need to add value. And we need to have a standard way of adding value, because we know that we have lost a lot as a continent, because we have not been able to add value to the natural resources that we have. What is the implication? The implication is that we have sold things very cheaply as a continent, and we go back and import the same after they have been value added more expensively. So we are the original owners of the products, but then we only enjoy a product that has been added value more expensively. And that will make the continent remain very poor. Mr. Speaker, we have a model law that has come on agriculture, which I hope again we'll be able to adopt and cause our own laws to be changed as a house. We are happy because Esther Passaris, who is a member of the Pan-African Parliament, is a member of the Agriculture and Rural Development Committee, and she is going to table the model law and transmit it to this house. And once it comes to this house, we will use it to amend, because we know agriculture is dominantly devolved, and this is the house that should make decisions. So there are many other laws that are coming. We are coming up with laws that to do with trade. Mr. Speaker, I sit in the trade committee, and we are working on the issue of the free trade area currently, and we are really pushing hard to make sure that this continent becomes open. We know that there is, within the agreement of the African free trade area agreement, it is clear that when we have about 8 members having ratified, they are allowed to proceed. And we are going to urge the East African community to proceed with that. We know that currently we have the customs union between the East African countries. And again, even as we are working on that, one of the objectives of the African Union is to make sure that the regional economic blocks like the East African community can integrate further and be the role models when it comes to integration. And this is what we are going to push for ourselves as the East African region, using the model that has been successful in allowing trade between the states of the East African community, so that we can spread out, because the East African region under the African Union has more countries, in fact, than what the East African community has. We have Ethiopia, we have Djibouti, we have the islands, Madagascar and Seychelles, and we need to expand that integration and to allow free movement. Mr. Speaker, we are proud as Kenya that the head of state made a pronouncement that people, that Africans, anybody from the continent of Africa can get into Kenya without a visa. That if you For any country that still has to do anything, you do your processing even at the airport. This is what we are looking for under the African Union, and this is what the Pan-African Parliament is pushing for. We are pushing for free movement of persons. We are pushing for free movement of goods so that we can trade between ourselves better, and we open the airspace, because unless we open the airspace,
Under Kamala Harris's plan, no one making less than $400,000 would pay a penny more in taxes.
We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead.
I was born to be king. I was born to be cool. This is my house.
Mr. Speaker, it becomes extremely expensive for an African to move within the continent. One of the things that we are looking at right now to enable the free trade is looking at the infrastructure. The infrastructure requires that we have railway lines connecting, railway connectivity between countries in the continent. We want to have road networks between the country. We are very, very happy that with the candidature, as a delegation, we are very happy with the candidature of the Right Honorable Amolo Odinga. The main reason is that he was in charge of the African infrastructure before. So the priorities that he had put in place are the priorities that are now at the committee stage. When we are telling ourselves we need to have road networks, we need to have rail networks, so that we can have a railway line that starts from Cape Town all the way to Cairo. Then we have rails from Nairobi all the way to the west, to Senegal. These are some of the things that were emphasized when our own candidate, Raila Amolo Odinga, was in charge of infrastructure. It is our prayer as a house that he will win that position so that he moves this ahead. Mr. Speaker, may I finally say we are very grateful as a delegation that we have been given the opportunity to take up this great responsibility, and we believe that with the leadership of the Honorable Mungatana, we will even participate more and we will give more reports in this House so that the House can be moving with us. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator Esther.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. First, I wish to support this report by the members of the Pan-African Parliament who represented us in South Africa, led by the able Senator of Tana River, Senator Danson Mungatana. Senator Mungatana has been very consistent, especially anytime he represents this House in international fora. He quickly comes back and shares lessons learned with the members of this House. And I know that some of us who are following in those footsteps are actually going to reap big and also share with the rest of the Kenyans who are watching some of these discussions. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to just note a key area of interest. This is on trade. As a member of the Trade Committee of the Senate earlier this year, we were fortunate enough to have an address by the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, that is Wamkele Mene. And he took us through what their agenda is and how they want to synergize with African countries. And I want to note that there is already political goodwill from Kenya as a country, led by the president, who actually has been on the front line, pushing for Africa being very open to trade and encouraging the rest of the Kenyans who are in those other countries to participate. It's a very good opportunity for Kenyans to also take this chance and do trade in South Africa, and also for South Africans to also cross borders and come and trade with Kenyans. That's the old lessons of a borderless Africa, especially when it comes to trade. Mr. Speaker, sir, also, the Pan-African Parliament, whatever issues that are being discussed in that parliament are very key, especially to Africans, because that parliament represents legislators who have been sent from different countries in Africa, and we tend to think whatever proposal that originate from brains in the Pan-African Parliament should address most of the challenges we as a continent and as a country are facing. So we need to have more of these proposals and solutions that are being offered by the Pan-African Parliament be implemented in the member states so that we can make progress. Let it not be after every mission, we still have the same agenda we are revisiting. We need to make progress so that there is value for investing in our African states. Mr. Speaker, sir, also, Africa is a very key, it's a very key continent, and that's why you see even other countries in the rest of the world wanting to follow closely what we as a continent are engaging in. Look at even the African Union elections that we are actually pitching up for with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. It's very instrumental, and that's why citizens need to realize that it's not just an interest of a country, but they are equally affected in what goes on around the continent, because challenges Africans in Kenya are experiencing are the same challenges Africans in Ghana are experiencing, the same challenges Africans in Botswana are experiencing, and solutions are somehow similar. So I urge my colleague members of parliament to support this report and walk the talk from some of these proposals, so that we even give the members who normally go representing us in the Pan-African Parliament reason to agitate strongly for some of the proposals we are giving. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me just conclude by saying that this is also a very good opportunity, not just for senior citizens who are very much abled economically, but for young people, because young people are very quick, especially in this digital era, to connect across the continent and can therefore boost their networking skills, especially in business, not just selling in Kenya, but selling across the continent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, Honorable Speaker, I want to applaud the very senior delegation and led by Senator Danson Mungatana, the leader of the delegation. Honorable Speaker, the delegation is composed of very, very senior legislatures, and we are happy also to benefit from their wisdom, from their institutional memory of the legislative arm of our government. Senator Mungatana has a rich history, both from his profession and from his work in Parliament, as demonstrated even by his contributions and by his debates right at the Senate. Senator Professor Margaret Kamar is a seasoned legislator, and we remain very proud of the delegation that has really made this report. Honorable Speaker, as I support this report, I also look forward to an African that will be very proud of, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like an African that will be working towards the preservation, conservation of our resources, the vast resources that we have in this region. There is no African country, Honorable Speaker, that is not blessed with great resources. And so in this report, I want to I'm very happy even about the composition of the PAP committees as presented in this report. If you look at number clause 13, you see the committees there, the Committee on Rural Economy, Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Environment. Honorable Speaker, other than the conservation of our resources, I look forward to an Africa that will have an harmonized air travel, Honorable Speaker. We have often heard at public forums where the Right Honorable
The $6 meal deal is here. It starts with Dunkin's legendary coffee, a toasty, melty bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, and a crispy, crumbly order of hash browns. It's kind of the biggest deal in breakfast. The $6 meal deal, available now.
When your family's protected under our roof. So are you brave? I'm brave! They're free to enjoy their dreams. I'm fearless! I'm fearless! Bundle life and save up to 25% on home and auto. American Family Insurance. Get a quote and find an agent at amfam.com.
Former Prime Minister, the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, talk about the challenges we have in the air travel in Africa, about the various barriers that are there, and about the so many clearances that you have to get if you are to fly over the African airspace. And it is so then, Honorable Speaker, that I support this report as I look forward to the discussion of some of these challenges and then so that we are able to have a solution to some of these challenges. Honorable Speaker, I also look forward to a more harmonized currency across Africa. Honorable Speaker, we know, and as was echoed by my senior Senator Kamar, that Africa was one, and we were made to feel that you are Kenya, you are Uganda, you are Botswana, you are Rwanda, you are all over all these countries that were created from the same block. I look forward, Honorable Speaker, to a day when I could travel from Kenya and go north and go south and go west, but only use one currency. And it is based on that I support the report, because we are looking forward to eminent solutions that will come from this engagement. Honorable Speaker, in the report, they've reference to a number of objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. Honorable Speaker, I'm keen on good governance around the continent. I'm keen on an Africa that will be peaceful, that will be secure, an African where issues of human rights take precedence. I'm looking forward to an Africa that will have an enhanced infrastructure other than the air travel. Honorable Speaker, we can have an enhanced road network, we can have an enhanced water transport, and that can only come forward with the objectives that has been set by the Pan-African Parliament. Honorable Speaker, I look forward to an Africa that will address collectively the challenges we are facing on climate change. Honorable Speaker, just last year, some of us attended COP28, and we are looking forward to engagement, a world engagement on COP29. But Honorable Speaker, as I rise here and support this report, I'm looking forward to an Africa that will have one stand, that will collectively engage, that will collectively push for the agenda of climate change and all the challenges that Africa goes through. Honorable Speaker, I cannot forget to say that under the climate change, we should be addressing, as Africa, we should be addressing the issue of climate justice or injustice, and particularly to Africa, when you look at our contribution. To global emissions, Honorable Speaker, Africa, we feel this unjust, that while globally other countries or other regions contribute more to the global emission, Africa unjustly suffers so much at the hands of those global emitters. But interestingly, Honorable Speaker, we do not see the same contribution by those countries that globally emit more than Africa. We only see Africa getting a paltry. And so, Honorable Speaker, as I support this report, I would like an Africa that will address such challenges collectively as the Africa that we were. Honorable Speaker, as I round up my support for this report, I would like an Africa that will be looking at the future collectively. And that brings me to the just initiated Futures Caucus as initiated by Senator of Narok, Senator Olekina, that we should have a continent that will be driving a future agenda, that we should have a continent that will be looking at future solutions, right from the challenges we have in agriculture, infrastructure, education, health, climate change, as I've stated, and globally on all. Africa must relook at our education system, and I support.
Senator Beatrice Ogola, you'll have a remainder of 7 minutes when this motion resumes next. Honorable Senators, it is now 1 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 9th October 2024 at 2:30 p.m.
Our guest this morning is the chairperson of the Free Kenya Movement, Bob Jage. He's an activist. He's in the studio. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Karibu sana.
Good morning, City.
Morning, Bob.
And morning, Anki.
Hola.
Hola.
Karibu